On today's episode, we need a ride in your El Trucko to get to the next town. Oh, we watched The Mexican today on Nothing Movies.
So, Kaz, I finally got around to checking out your Letterboxd page.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
After so long.
After so long, you hyped it up so much, and I was a little curious to see, because, you seem so proud of it. I'd like to bring up a little something that caught my eye.
Sure, while you bring that up, I'll just reiterate. I don't know if, proud of it is necessarily, the right word for it. It's more like I have a crippling addiction to it, and it is sort of, poisoned the way that I, watch and consume media now, because I have to, I watched that. I gotta log it, gotta think of, a pithy sentence to say here, and I gotta get those likes. I'm always spamming for those likes. Anyway, it's ruined my life. But go ahead, tell me. Go ahead. What's up?
It's also affected the way that you see yourself and the way that you present yourself to others.
Oh, no.
So,
what have you dug
read
up?
a little something on the bio here. Host of the podcast Nothing Movies. Now, I'm under the impression that you are one of the hosts of Nothing Movies. This is a two-man operation.
Well, maybe you should fucking join Letterboxd, and then you can write whatever the fuck you want in your bio, Jameson. How about that? How about I'm just trying to make things concise?
Yeah, Jameson.
Write
how
about
your own
that?
story, pal.
It takes no effort at all to just put co-host in a bio.
It's a weaker word. It blunts your own power.
Fair enough.
Yes.
All right, well, I stand wildly corrected on it. And I wanted a witness for this, too.
I spend a lot of time blunting my own power. If you had brought it up off mic, I probably would have changed it, but because you've put me on blast necessarily.
Whenever this episode comes out, people will have...
I'm gonna... You know what? I'm editing it right now.
Don't do it, Kaz.
Host of Nothing Movies and only host of Nothing Movies.
I'd like to point out that you stand co-corrected. I'm here too.
Well, welcome back, whoever you wish to self-identify, to Nothing Movies, where we ask a bunch of questions. We ask a lot of questions on this show. We ask the question, the fuck is this? But sometimes we also ask other questions, including, if two people love podcasting, but they just can't get it together, at what point in time do they say to themselves, enough is enough? And we answer...
Oh, I'm giving myself
never.
another year.
Never.
No, never.
Never is the right answer.
This train's never running out of gas. Nothing movie. 100 years, Nothing Movies. Forever and ever. Jameson and Kaz.
That's right.
And Harrison.
Back again by popular demand.
He didn't even wait for us to introduce ourselves.
Co-host.
Co-host of the show tonight. It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made and decide whether or not they've got a certain something or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm the only host of this podcast, Cass Lescard, apparently.
And I'm the other guy, riding his coattails, apparently.
who needs no introduction.
That's right.
And won't be given one. And yes, back on the show for a third time. It's your third time on the podcast, and it's also your third of as many locations.
Yes, that's true.
That you have recorded. You've run.
This one's on a boat, and
it is.
Yeah.
You can hear the ambient noise. You can hear the sloshing in the background.
That's not the boat.
That's the.
Oh no! You're on the world tour here, the Nothing Movies World Tour.
Oh, I can't wait for the 5th time, which is in space.
And you get a member's jacket.
Yes,
which we are sourcing. Which we will have to because it's only 3 for you.
Oh, and then I go to hell. And then back to space.
Yeah.
Look, technically,
then we'll do the snow level, the pyramid level,
right? And then Lava World, and so on and so on. And then it'll be the meta podcast where we get really real.
And then an episode from my perspective.
You mean in your house?
No, it's just all first person from my perspective. It's me walking along.
Technically, we never did one of those Zoom recording episodes with them. That will be
that's true. That'll be there. Well, we'll do that for the next pandemic, which is right around the corner, I'm sure. Author of the memoir Invisible Boy, Harrison Mooney. He's back on the show. He's back on the podcast. Hey, buddy.
Welcome back.
How's it going?
Hi. Hey, guys. It's so good to see you. I love doing your podcast because it lets me project. And everyone else is always telling me to quiet down. But you insist that I speak louder.
But don't speak so soon.
Not only do we insist it's necessary for the audience to hear what you're doing, what you're saying. Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
So we do insist it. We do insist. Harrison, you've been on twice before, but what we had not gotten around to getting you to do yet was pick the actor that you wanted to talk about, which is we often extend that olive branch to the guests, and we say, come with an actor that you want to talk about, and we'll find a movie to fit that around. So this most recent time, I posed that question to you. I said, like, if you wanted to come back on the show, who's an actor you want to talk about? And you almost immediately came back with Mr. Brad Pitt.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I think I've always had a crush on him. He's a very good-looking man. And when he's
really, I've never noticed. Brad Pitt.
It's if you squint.
Yes, yeah.
There he is. And I find him very charming, especially when he's eating. He's always eating in his movies. There's a great scene of him eating in the movie we'll be talking about here today, and I wanted to talk about one of his crappier films. I thought that would be fun to do. To take that handsome George down a peg. Fuck him.
He's a handsome George. What does that make George Clooney?
A handsomer George.
The handsomest George.
The handsomest of all Georges.
The original handsome George.
That's right.
Whence the term was coined.
It goes George Segal, and then Clooney, and then...
Like a young George.
And then, I guess, W. is tangentially like the third one.
No.
Yeah, but you mentioned Brad Pitt, and then almost within the same breath, you mentioned the movie that inevitably we are talking about today, 2001's The Mexican. Now, you're always inspiring this podcast. You're always...
If we can do better than how we think Harrison is doing, then we've done our job.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm so honored.
You've set a high bar, mister.
As I said on the last episode, right now we are in the midst of our Nothing Blockbusters miniseries, where we're taking a look at movies that are slightly better known than the usual bargain basement toss that we usually cover. And when you brought up the concept of The Mexican, my initial thought was, that's too well known. We can't do that. That's like, people have heard of that had like a big release push or whatever. I'm almost certain it did like fairly well on its opening weekend or whatever.
Week one.
And then straight down the toilet after that.
Once word of mouth got out.
It absolutely had like an Entertainment Weekly cover. I will bet money on that. But yeah, and then you said like, okay, Brad Pitt, cool. I'll find something. I'll go through his filmography. I'll find something. We can't do The Mexican. And then I went home that night and I thought to myself, or can we? And and that largely led to the germ of the idea of why don't we start covering in our fifth year of doing this podcast? Why don't we start covering movies that people have actually heard of? Give it a shot. Why not? Yeah. So here we are.
What do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, exactly. You forced us to watch The Mexican. Yes.
I'm proud. I'm proud that I made you guys do this. No, I was trying to think of a Brad Pitt movie that I hadn't seen. It was like I wanted to fill this gap in my life. And the thing with this movie is, it had such big stars, and these stars are at like the peak of their fame, right? Like this was the Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts era.
This is the year after Julia Roberts wins the Oscar for Erin Brockovich.
Yeah,
so
this is never Catwoman.
She's never been more famous than this. It technically is. Yes, absolutely. Yes,
it's her stealth. I don't know if the Jamie Foxx.
Nope. That makes sense too. Yeah.
No. And so it's such a big movie. And I think it came out like right when I was going to college, and so like I missed it because I didn't have any money. But I just remember how quickly it disappeared. Like it was, like on Entertainment Tonight and hard copy, which are shows my mom watched all the time. It was being talked about like crazy. And then this movie comes out, and it's like, oh, what Mexican? Like I don't know what you're talking about. And so I wanted to go back and figure out like how is a movie such a failure that even though it stars the two biggest actors of their generation, it's just quietly put away after its release? Like, how did that happen? So I wanted to answer that question, and I'm going to be honest, I used you guys. I used you.
Well, we're happy to be used by you, always. It's interesting, like, before watching this, I reviewed the trailer again, because that was the only thing I remembered about this movie, and I remember just, like, the trailer, even then, back in the day, not really telling me what the plot of this movie was...
Movie doesn't know.
But yeah, now we're on the other side of it. Yeah, there's no answers to that question, truly. But yeah, it's a movie that is entirely sold off of the backs of Brad and Julia together at last. Oh boy, you can't even fucking believe it. But I think like the truly ironic thing is that this movie was sold on the strength of finally they're in a movie together, and 8 months later, Ocean's 11 comes out. A far superior movie that both of those actors are also in. Yeah. So we just needed to wait. We just needed to wait a little bit.
Yeah, I was curious where exactly it fell in the timeline of both their filmographies. But yeah, we built this blockbuster series around, well, we want to talk about the Mexican. This is Harrison's request. Happy to do it. Happy to accommodate. But I take immediate umbrage with calling this a blockbuster. A blockbuster to me is a summer popcorn flick that has big stunts, big special effects, big stars. This has 2 of the 3 requirements, something like that. This is a dark comedy. If this is a blockbuster, Death to Smoochie is a blockbuster.
I think it's probably the same. Like, whatever the genre is for Death to Smoochie is, I think, where this movie was supposed to be. Maybe where it ends up in the end. It's like, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Like, but it just kind of doesn't...
I think both of you need to keep Death to Smoochie out of your mouths. That movie is an absolute masterpiece. And
did I say anything bad about Death to Smoochie?
Nothing would make me happier than to watch Death to Smoochie right now rather than not talking about the Mexican.
Let's say that movie didn't work either, Kaz, but I'll leave that for another day.
There'll be a resurgence. One of these days, the oeuvre of director Danny DeVito will be put under a microscope, and we'll finally appreciate Death to Smoochie.
I think you just gave Kaz another idea, Harrison.
You better invite me back for
this podcast will never end 100 years. Jameson, do you have any stray thoughts on Brad Pitt before we start breaking down this man's career?
Straight thoughts?
I don't know. It can be straddling the line between...
dude.
Yeah, I've always liked the actor. He sneaks up on you as a character actor.
Well, that's kind of like the secret sauce about Brad Pitt is that he's
one of those guys that we talk about every once in a while that have the movie star good looks, but I think his heart lies with being just a little bit more experimental, or a little bit like he had like his big draw in the indie scene, and then once something like Fight Club, Ocean's 11, once that catapults him into the stratosphere, there's no way he's coming back down.
Yeah, I think he tries. Like every once in a while, like Brad Pitt will try and force himself into like a goofy character role, and then you get some of his best performances. Like the obvious example is Burn After Reading, where he's just like absolutely tremendous, but he's playing off of his natural good looks in that, and you think he's one thing, and then about 10 minutes into that, you're like, oh, you're just a big dum-dum. I will not spend a ton of time wallowing in this. I do feel like it behooves me to just point out that we're here today to talk about Brad Pitt, the movie star. We're here to talk about his career and his status as a celebrity and the roles that he takes. None of our discussion about Brad Pitt today should make you think that we endorse Brad Pitt the person, because by all accounts there are a couple of reports circulating out there that kind of reveal him as kind of a shitty dude. But we don't need to spend a ton of time wallowing in that. I just wanted to point that out here, that people are complicated and bad most of the time. Most people are bad.
Most of the time they get famous for
especially actors. But yeah, I mean, we're here to talk about Brad Pitt, the celebrity. Brad Pitt, the debutante. That's the wrong word, but that's fine.
I do want to jump in and say that, like, as an adoptee, I think it's noteworthy that Brad Pitt is a famously bad adoptive father.
Really shines a whole spotlight on the whole epidemic.
Maybe one of the worst.
Yeah. And yeah, this is this episode is coming off the heels of the news story that one of his children just turned 18 and celebrated their 18th birthday by removing Pitt from their last name, and they had a big, much like I mentioned on the last episode, Nicole Kidman signing her divorce papers. There was a lot of them dancing around outside the legal office, going like woohoo! But
we'll see if we can complete this hat trick with the third actor we have lined up and their troublesome behavior.
Nothing controversial about that guy.
Well, nope. Stay tuned for that one, folks.
I bet I know who it is.
Yeah, no. We might even mention him within the confines of this filmography. They've definitely made one movie together. But anyway, Brad Pitt. Bradleyus Pitticus. His career begins, he has some uncredited bit parts in movies like No Way Out, No Man's Land, and Less Than Zero. He has early TV roles that include Another World, Dallas, 21 Jump Street, and my personal favorite, he's in one episode of Freddy's Nightmares, the short-lived horror portmanteau series hosted by Freddy Krueger.
That's a cool idea. I didn't even know that existed.
I think it lasted for exactly one season. But yeah, there was a brief point in time where Freddy Krueger had a TV show. There was also a Friday the 13th TV show that was largely the same thing. It's like the Twilight Zone. Every episode, it's like a new spooky tale. But
Freddy Krueger would be like the Crypt Keeper.
He was. It's basically Tales from the Crypt, but with Freddy Krueger.
Okay, well, the Friday the 13th one, he doesn't talk.
No, that was
hosting that.
That's
one?
what I was getting to. I don't actually think it had a host, and yeah, Jason himself is not in it. That's just them taking the name Friday the 13th, and it's like, what if some other weird stuff happened? But no, Freddy is the host of Freddy's Nightmares, and I believe he actually had a couple of episodes of his own. It's like every season they were all like, we get one Freddy-centric episode in this.
He'd be a great host, honestly. Like
he should host it now. He should bring it back. Yeah, absolutely.
He should have gotten to host like an episode of The Tonight Show, like between permanent hosts. That would have been a great episode.
Yeah. Freddy Krueger on SNL.
Yeah.
Let's do that now. It sounds great. His first actual movie is in the 1988 Yugoslavian drama, The Dark Side of the Sun, where he plays a young man in search of a cure for his deadly skin disorder, which means that is a movie where Brad Pitt, for the majority of it, is wearing like a full gimp suit.
Whoa, that's Brad Pitt?
That's what Brad Pitt looks like through like the majority of that movie.
That's really blunting his natural gifts.
You know what? Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah,
it makes you wonder why it took him so long to reach the stratosphere.
It's got a little bit of a filter on it, yeah.
Now put on this mask.
1989, he has a small role in the romantic comedy Happy Together, starring Patrick Dempsey and Helen Slater, which is directed by Mel Damsky of Yellowbeard and Legendary fame. Also in 1989 is the horror comedy Cunning Class, which is an early predecessor to Scream. Yeah, it's basically there's a killer loose in the high school, and these teens are going to give them some attitude. And that also stars, because today I'm all about referencing people from past episodes, Jameson. This also stars Jill Sholin from The Best of Times.
Oh, okay.
And this starts off a trend with Brad Pitt of him starting relationships with his co-stars because they dated for a brief amount of time.
She made it into that club, huh?
She made it into that. She was by all accounts the first of that club. She was but not one of the more memorable ones. But speaking of which, 1990, he does the TV movie Too Young to Die. This stars Juliette Lewis, who plays a 15-year-old runaway who hooks up with an older hustler, who is played by Pitt, and the two eventually turn to murder.
Whoa, in my mind, Juliette Lewis is still a 15-year-old runaway. Like, that's just kind of who she's always been to me. Like,
yes. Even nowadays, when she is a lady pushing 50.
Yeah, like in Yellow Jackets season 1, I was like, 15-year-old runaway, Juliette Lewis is in this.
In a gross example of life imitating art, Pitt and Lewis also began a real-life romance when they were filming this movie, where he was 26 and she was 16.
Yucky.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned, we're not talking about the seedy side of his celebrity.
I just wanted to point that out because the relationship lasted 4 years, and ironically, it ended around the release of 1993's California, in which Pitt and Lewis kind of play the same character. They play like it's another sort of Bonnie and Clyde type situation of like there's these two crazy people and they're out there and they pick up. Remember California with a K?
Yes.
Yes, with David Duchovny. Yes. But that happens. And then also in 1990, he's in the largely forgotten track and field drama Across the Tracks, which stars him and Ricky Schroeder as brothers.
You're making this up, man. There's Across the Tracks.
They're giving Kaz the premise, and then he's...
Yeah, it's like Balderdash.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
they give you the title.
Exactly in my head. Yeah. That's the Mad Libs of the career.
Yeah.
So that's Brad Pitt's early career.
I'm sorry, I'm just...
Across the Tracks? You still off on that?
I'm just thinking about, like, all right, so it's a movie about hurdles. Like, what's it called?
What do we got?
Talk to Hurdles. Like, what's the...
Talk to Hurdles?
You ever see Talk to Her?
I've seen Talk to Her. Yeah.
Away from Hurdles. How about?
Away from...
Death becomes Hurdles.
Oh, my God.
Yertle the Hurdle.
I'm just thinking, like, away from hurdles, just, like, Julie Christie has like dementia, but she's still clearing these fucking. Oh my god. Just like the.
She gets clarity when she's clearing the hurdles.
Yes.
Like in Awakening.
Crosses that finish line and all becomes clear.
So, okay. So this is the part of Brad Pitt's career pre-fame. That's how little that he just like wasn't like Brad Pitt superstar. It's only just like a handful of like TV roles and some smaller movies. 1991 is where it all turns around for Brad Pitt. He is in a movie in 1991 that is kind of forgotten. Kind of before we landed on The Mexican, this was the movie I wanted to cover. I just couldn't find it anywhere. It's a movie called Johnny Suede, where he plays a struggling musician with the largest hair in the world.
Yeah, the inspiration for Johnny Bravo, I believe.
I think it might be tangentially connected to that.
I believe it was the direct inspiration for
there
the Cartoon Network cartoon Johnny Bravo.
He definitely has Johnny Bravo style hair here, so yeah, I would buy that. Yeah. But you can't find that movie anywhere. But a movie that you absolutely can find, 1991, his real breakout role. And that, of course, is Ridley Scott's Thelma and Louise.
Oh, what a great role for him! Like the dream as an actor, I think, is to be cast in something like where you're hot, like you're hot, and the film thinks you're hot, and as like the audience, your job is to believe this person is hot, and then for the rest of your life, like you're hot. And that movie just
That's what worked for
him
him.
as hot. He was hotness personified.
Thank you. That's literally what was on my lips before you snatched it from me.
Imagine if Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise was on your lips.
Hey.
Yes.
There you go.
I would
yeah.
And not only that, but he's got two famous beautiful icon sex symbols themselves lusting after him too. So
Susan
like
Sarandon.
that gives you some bona fides too.
Susan.
Yeah, so he shows up in that movie. He's only in it for I think the first half. He really only has like a couple of scenes. He just shows up to romance Gina Davis, get caught stealing their money, and then he's largely out of the movie. But it was enough for him to get noticed and just like catapult into like the upper echelon of celebrity at that point in time, and that's where it began.
Because Hollywood's all based around looks.
Absolutely, yeah. We never said otherwise. We've never made any point of saying otherwise. 1992,
I still think we could have played that role. Any one of us could have played the
any
Brad Pitt
any
role.
One of us
in
at any point in time.
It's all confidence, guys.
Cast the three of us right now with the three male performances in Thelma and Louise. Who's Brad Pitt? Who's Michael Madsen? Who's Harvey Keitel?
Oh, this is like real fuck, marry, kill.
Yeah.
Obviously, I am Brad Pitt.
Clearly, yes. Well, you are the guest.
Hang on a second.
Because I'm the tallest.
Yeah, I think that works. And then Jameson is Madsen, who's like the nice supportive guy, and I'm Harvey Keitel because I always have my dick out. So there we go. That's how that works.
Because you're the legendary character actor.
Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, you guys are legendary character actors, and
you're just a character.
I'm a leading man who I think we can all agree should not be a leading man.
Right.
He's not quite good enough for that. Yeah. He just has such good looks.
A real Sam Worthington situation we got here with you.
Yeah, I'm Scott Eastwood.
Oh, God. 1992, he's in a movie that I definitely saw way too young, Cool World.
Oh, fuck that movie.
Yeah.
Definitely a movie I remember renting on VHS and watching with my friend Travis, and neither of us having any frame of reference for what was going on, but I knew it gave me a very weird boner.
You say Cool World, and my mind replays Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like,
yes.
They are the same movie to me.
Well, one of them is good. One of them is the masterpiece, and the other one is Cool World.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
Well, they know how to corner the market on young boys with those two movies. Friggin' pervert animators.
Also in 1992, he is in the Robert Redford directed film A River Runs Through It.
Touching film about two brothers where one is good and one is bad. That's the film.
Yes, and it's about fly fishing.
Yeah.
I have never seen it. Seems boring.
My dad loved it. so much that he got into fly fishing. That's a fact.
I think that
And he took me fly fishing.
I think that movie is responsible for like the resurgence of fly fishing in like the 90s. I think there was just a massive boom after that thing came out.
Is the other brother like Gary Sinise?
I think it's Craig Schaefer. It's a
That's
guy. It's
not
a
a
guy. It's a
name.
guy who never went anywhere, and the other guy is Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Like you said, one good, one bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1993, he has a small but very funny role in the Tony Scott film True Romance, which is the first time he hooks up with Quentin Tarantino, who wrote the screenplay for that movie. Yeah, he's got that great role. He's
He's the stoner couch surfer
He's
guy,
the
right?
stoner roommate who keeps inadvertently getting them into trouble because gangsters show up and he's all like, "Yeah, they went over there, man." Yeah. Also in that movie, James Gandolfini, who we'll be talking about in a little bit here. 1994, he's in a romantic comedy called The Favor. That movie doesn't exist. He's
Sure it does. You're talking about it.
It's around. It's definitely there. Yes, but you know.
You're not making this shit up. It's not the Mad Lib situation.
You purposefully don't want me to spend all that much time on the filmography. So when I try to breeze through something for your behalf, that's the time that you stop the podcast.
Hurry up and get to Legends of the Fall, God damn it.
That's the same year, Legends of the Fall.
Hey!
Edward Zwick. Haven't seen it, seems boring.
It's boring.
He's got a couple of movies where that falls under that umbrella of haven't seen it, seems boring. And that's one of those movies for me.
That one re-upped his hotness, though. Like, people were like, he's hot. And then Legends of the Fall came out, and it was like, he's hot. Like, he was... I remember, like, my mom was talking about Brad Pitt after Legends of the Fall. And we didn't see Legends of the Fall. We just saw, like, the trailer.
You saw the poster where his long flowing blonde locks or whatever, and it's all like, what's that movie about? It's about Brad Pitt being a babe.
He's very Fabio in that movie. Remember Fabio?
Yes.
Remember the roller coaster incident?
That's literally what I was about to bring up. That's like the only thing.
That's the only thing
It's the only thing we remember now is that a seagull hit him in the face when he was like, he ain't so pretty now. Also in 1994, he gets a little dramatic here with Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, famously bad acting from him in that. And you can tell because they've recently turned this into like
That's a Netflix show now, right?
It's a Netflix show.
Yeah.
And the Netflix show, like the guy who's playing his role does such an incredible job that it has retroactively pointed out how bad Brad Pitt was in Interview with the Vampire. This is a fact. You should look it up. People are talking about it.
Fair enough, yeah. But and I mean, I literally just wrote down this filmography. Maybe I'll point something out later on that contradicts that. But still to this day, the only time him and Tom Cruise were in a movie together, I think. I might be completely wrong about that. But yeah, God, I haven't seen that in a really long time.
Tom Cruise rules in that.
Tom Cruise is great in that. Like he has the benefit of like having like the weirder of the two characters.
Yeah.
And
Kirsten Dunst is in that one, right?
oh, she's phenomenal in that.
she's
Yeah, that's
excellent in
like
that.
her first movie.
It's very weird, but she's really good in that.
Yeah. But I think that was just brilliant of them to combine the two hot stars of the 90s in that because they were the 90s heartthrobs.
Yeah, they
of
should
the era.
combine two big action or two big movie stars into another Brad Pitt movie. I bet it's a surefire recipe for a successful film.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
It's not, yeah. He could have a series of films where he's just working with other huge movie stars. Yeah. Okay, so 1995, massive year for Pitt. This is really sort of like his coronation as like the movie star year. Of course, it's his first time working with director David Fincher in Seven.
Love that fucking movie.
And absolutely masterful film that just leaves you completely bummed out by the end of it and kind of
Haunted.
Not feeling great about the state of the world and everything. But yeah, that's his first partnership with Fincher, and also continuing his trend of romancing his stars. He also begins several years relationship with one Gwyneth Paltrow from that. They were an item until the next big item.
I don't know who I feel more sorry for in that scenario.
in that movie or in that relationship?
In that relationship.
In the movie, you should feel bad for Paltrow. But also in 1995, he has a couple of numerical movies because he's in Seven, but he's also in 12 Monkeys,
Oh, he's good in that.
Yeah.
which he gets his first Oscar nomination for.
Terry Gilliam?
Terry Gilliam.
Yes, it was.
Yep. So he's
I think
playing.
they also made that into a Netflix series.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, they make everything into a
Yeah.
series now. Everything is a limited series now at this point in time.
That was my first time I remember seeing him in a big movie where he was being a little off kilter, like in a way that I hadn't, because I haven't seen most of the movies
Yeah.
that you've mentioned so far, but that was the first time where I was like, holy shit, Brad Pitt's not acting like the Brad Pitt I'm familiar with.
I think
This
that's
isn't the regular Brad.
this isn't my store-bought Brad. I think that's largely why he got the Oscar nomination, because it was the first time it's all like, oh, he's playing a character. He's playing crazy, you know, and
Yeah.
there might be a slightly problematic character to look back on now, but because it's just like very boilerplate Hollywood crazy. But it's been a long time since I've seen that. There's like a twist involved with that character. He's like a terrorist leader or something,
Time
right?
traveler or
It's
something.
a time traveling
Bruce Willis
terrorist.
is the time traveler.
And they meet up in a mental asylum.
That's a movie I remember the first half of it really well, and then the second half of it always seems to disappear.
Or does it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's happening right now.
All the pieces fall
monkeys.
back in and it all connects, and then yeah.
The Eighth Monkey was my favorite. 1996, he's in the big ensemble drama Sleepers, which is a great movie to keep in your back pocket if you're ever playing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, because that's a movie with like Dustin Hoffman, Brad Pitt, Robert De Niro, Minnie Driver, Billy Crudup. Like it's just like a ton of people are in that movie. So if you ever
Kevin Bacon in it?
Kevin Bacon is top billed. Yes,
Ooh,
that's
alright.
a very depressing movie. It's about like a bunch of kids who accidentally cause the death of a hot dog cart vendor, or someone gets flattened with a hot dog cart. But then they go to
You just took all the wind out of that.
I know,
sentence.
but then they go to juvie.
My hot dogs is the
Hey,
famous line.
my livelihood over here.
Oh no!
I think what happens is they try to steal a hot dog cart. It rolls
He's
down
like,
a
get
hill.
back here with my hot dog.
That one actually stars Brad Pitt. I don't know.
Okay.
All right.
Let's move on. We're not.
Let's
We're not
move on
beating
from
that.
Sleepers.
That was too funny for this podcast.
Get
We
out.
need to tone it down. 1997, not a great year for him. He's in 7 Years in Tibet. Haven't seen it. Seems boring.
Very long.
Yes.
Very long. Yeah, they should call it. Oh no, 7 years. It's
It's quite 7 years is
7 years in Tibet.
a pretty good length of time. He's also Irish in The Devil's Own. He's like a secret IRA terrorist living with Harrison Ford.
How's his accent?
yeah.
Have you seen it?
I'm guessing not great. No,
I
it's
don't
one of
think
those famously bad accents. It's something else he has in common with Tom Cruise. They can't play Irish people, and they
Yeah, I
shouldn't
don't
try.
like the King of England. Bad.
We're gonna bomb this hot dog cat.
That was also about a
Yeah,
hot dog.
that also
Was it Boston Irish or?
1998, he plays the Grim Reaper himself in Meet Joe Black, a movie that is so long it's still going on
There's
right
like
now.
one scene in Meet Joe Black.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
we all know the one scene, the one gun. You can watch it on YouTube right now. You can watch it on a
So funny.
loop.
It's so funny. Like, what were they? I just want to know. Like, was it supposed to be that funny, or
I hope so.
When,
Made
they,
it that
when
funny.
they made it,
It's
were
from
they
the director of Midnight Run and Beverly Hills Cop, so like he knows comedy.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I want to know, like, if when that came back from post production, like, if everybody laughed and then they were like, "That's what we were trying to do," you know? Because it just feels like nothing else about that movie is even remotely funny. This is a deeply unfunny
Well,
movie.
I will remind you, because there are two things that I remember about Meet Joe Black. There's him getting hit by the car, and then there's the moment where he meets like an old Jamaican woman, and she's like nervous about dying, and he's all like, "Don't worry, everything's gonna be Irie."
Oh my god.
That's the thing that happens in that movie.
I
So
forgot
yeah,
about that.
it's got some laughs. It's got some laughs in it. It's a solid 3.5 hours. 1999, he's back with David Fincher in Fight Club, which is a masterful, legendary movie, of course, that catapulted him into even further echelons of fame and success.
Re-upped his hotness a third time.
Yeah.
And gave birth to toxic masculinity.
It did.
Pretty much, yeah. Just a ton of dude bros completely missing the point of that deeply satirical novel written by a gay man.
Just red pilled the fuck out of a whole
yeah.
generation.
yeah,
I remember there were a bunch of guys in my high school that tried to start their own fight clubs, even though a lot of them didn't even have jobs. Like, didn't even have part-time jobs that were sort of the backbone of that movie.
Their
Not
job
rebelling
was
against
Yeah.
anything.
fighting.
Yeah, I did, and I also remember that being the movie that inspired me to get into better shape, because those fucking shirtless scenes of Brad Pitt just couldn't make hay of it, because as my buddy put it to me, you have to be fucking Brad Pitt to look like that.
I blew up a Starbucks after that movie.
Yeah, that movie inspired me to do something, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. Moving on. 2000, I feel like this is they're different movies from different directors, but I always very tangentially tie in Fight Club to the release of this movie. 2000 is, he's in Snatch.
I love that fucking movie. It's my mom's favorite Guy Ritchie movie. Wow. So my mom's a cool lady who likes gangster flicks.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a very palatable gangster flick. I feel like that's, there's, but yeah, and
he's got a better Irish accent in that than the other one.
Well,
best
I don't think he's meant to be Irish. I think he's meant to be Romani or whatever.
It's not
whatever
quite Irish. It's not quite gypsy. It's just pikey.
It's just, are you...
That's a line from the movie.
It is.
Yeah.
Is it a line that we're allowed to say in civilized society? I don't know what pikey means, but it doesn't sound good. And now I've said it too.
Yeah.
So now we're all. I know.
Tisk.
This happens every time we invite Harrison over. We both end up canceled. Wow. 2001. He's in Ocean's 11. We
talked about that last episode.
He's also back with both Tony Scott and Robert Redford in Spy Game.
Yes.
Is that a movie that anyone has seen or remembered anything about?
I have seen Spy Game, and all I remember is that Robert Redford is in it. That's about it. That's
there you go. Also Brad Pitt?
Yes.
There we go.
Forgot about that, to be honest.
2003, he's in 2 voiceover roles. I want to point this out. Talk about forgotten movies that no one remembers. This is probably the most, forgotten DreamWorks animated film of all time. He is, of course, Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, which is, one of the last traditionally 2D animated movies that DreamWorks attempted to make.
Oh, he ended it.
He ended it. He completely set that on fire and set it off. But also,
I remember that being okay.
I remember
we covered it in a color theory class in art school, and much like Cool World and Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
it's got a sexy lady.
Got a sexy femme fatale villain in it as well.
His performance in that, so two-dimensional, they decided to add a third dimension to all animated movies afterwards.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done,
Thank
Harrison.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Also talking about voiceover roles, also in 2003, I just had to throw this in here. He also voices Boomhauer's estranged brother in an episode of King of the Hill.
Oh yeah.
Which if I looked it up on YouTube last night, and he's very good. He does the whole hey, come on, man, that old thing, man, and it's he nailed it. That's an accurate depiction of what the Boomhauer family sounds like. So.
Patch Boomhauer, I remember that episode.
Patch Boomhauer. I forgot to mention back in 1998, he's never in a movie with this lady, but of course he famously marries Jennifer Aniston. That will become relevant in a couple of movies down the road here. 2004, he's in Troy. He's Achilles in Troy. Ocean's 12. 2005, of course, is the year of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That's when the Jennifer Aniston thing hits the iceberg, and he begins his longest relationship, most in-profile relationship, of course, with Angelina Jolie, that has no issues, and everything worked out great for them, and there's no reason we need to peel back the layers on that particular scab. 2006, he's in Babel, very depressing movie. 2007, he's in Ocean's 13 and The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Great movie.
Think that's a great movie. I think he's great in it. That's definitely one of his best performances, in my opinion. 2008, another one of his best performances, Burn After Reading. I mentioned that. He's back with David Fincher for the final time so far. Curious Case of Benjamin Button gets his second Oscar nomination, first for lead actor. I ran the Fincher filmography earlier this year, so I rewatched Benjamin Button for the first time. It's certainly not a bad movie. It's definitely my least favorite David Fincher movie. Mm-hmm. I watched all of it, and by the end of it, I'm just like, David, never do this again.
I feel like what happened was that they rented Forrest Gump, and then got to the end, and, we're like, oh, we have to rewind this. And so they started rewinding it, and then they were like, I have an idea. The same movie backwards.
Well, but Eric Roth, the screenwriter of Forrest Gump, also wrote The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So he literally just took some white out and crossed out Forrest and wrote Benjamin.
He must be just such an annoying writer to hang out with. Just not only has he had all this success, but every one of his movies is just the long and ponderous life of a character whose name I created.
Of a most unusual person.
Just
see how he affects other people's lives just by him being himself.
Yeah, that's just bad writing, honestly.
I mean, in both those cases, Forrest Gump and Benjamin Button, they're working off of source material, because Benjamin Button's also an F. Scott Fitzgerald short story that I think they
Should have stayed a short
should have.
story.
They probably
Stay
could have.
short,
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, there's maybe not enough material there, which is why they had to come up with this wraparound segment where Kate Blanchett's dying in a hospital, and there's like a big storm happening, and isn't this enticing? No, get back to the baby man. That's what I want.
Yeah, bring back the baby man.
Bring him back. 2009, his first starring role for Quentin Tarantino in Glorious Bastards.
It's my favorite Tarantino movie.
He wants those scalps. Sorry, I'm sorry. He wants those skulls. That's the fucking. I want your skull. But what band is that? Fuck. Oh God. Stay tuned, everyone. I'll figure that out.
Yeah, Google that.
You know, if you make a
Google that
mistake,
later.
you can just move on from it. You don't have to double down on a mistake.
I can also edit all of this out so it just like flows together better into the episode. 2010, he's a voice in Megamind. 2011, he's a voice in Happy Feet 2. He plays a Krill alongside Matt Damon. They're off on their own little side adventure.
Are they having like an Ocean's 11 style adventure because they're krill on a heist?
They're not on a heist. No, they're trying to become like apex predators.
Oh.
They're,
Good luck.
yeah. Weird movie, Happy Feet. Both of them are very strange. He's also in Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life, and he gets his third and fourth Oscar nominations for Moneyball for Best Actor, and also his first nomination for producing a movie as well, too.
Wait, Happy Feet, George Miller.
George
right?
Miller,
Yes,
director
that's
of
it.
Mad Max Fury Road.
Just the strangest of all of his credits.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty strange. I mean, he also did Babe 2, Pig in the City.
Ah, that's so George Miller, though. You know.
Have you seen?
Oh,
have you seen Pig in the City?
Oh,
That's
I've
one of
seen
the.
Pig in the
That's
City.
one of the weirdest fucking movies
what
ever
a
made.
film. Oh yeah, you can
Jeez.
see the Mad Max blueprint all over.
Oh yeah,
it all.
he's just like the most insane Australian who's ever existed. Yeah, definitely. 2012, he's back with the director of Jesse James with Killing Them Softly, another movie about sad, depressed contract killers, also starring James Gandolfini. It's all connected. 2013, he's in the woefully focus-tested nightmare film World War Z. A movie that went through like such production delays and development hell, like to the point where you watch that movie now. Matthew Fox from Lost is in that movie as like a helicopter pilot. He's in it for like 2 seconds. He has maybe like 3 lines. At one point in time, he was the main villain of the movie, and
he was the zombie.
he was like the main non-zombie
Oh, I see.
like villain or whatever and stuff like that. But like, yeah, they completely snipped him out of the movie and
Brutal.
They completely missed the point of the book. That's something that they should have made into a Netflix series.
yeah, the book doesn't need to be a Brad Pitt movie.
No.
It really isn't. Yeah. And for some reason, Brad Pitt has been trying to make a sequel to that for years. He nearly convinced David Fincher to direct the sequel to it, which would have been the darkest timeline if that actually happened.
World War Y, I imagine. It was
Or
called.
why? And we would all be asking the question, World War Why. He's also back with director Ridley Scott for the first time since Thelma and Louise with The Counselor, a very grim, weird fucking Cormac McCarthy movie. I don't want to give things away because there's some crazy
no
shit that
spoilers.
happens in that movie. I will just say that is the movie where Cameron Diaz has sex with a car. Not in a car, with a car.
Whoa.
Yeah, you
so-
As
keep
hot as I imagine.
you keep bringing up this movie, and I might have to check it out.
Gotta see it just for that, man. She also did that in
Who's on top?
What do you think? What do you think? She's not like checking the oil or anything like that. She's like, it's more of like the windshield. Like she's doing stuff to the windshield, and Javier Bardem is inside, like losing his fucking shit.
Whoa.
That's also a movie where the entire movie was shot where, bringing this up yet again, Cameron Diaz did her entire role with a Jamaican fatwa. And then
come on, guys.
her entire performance was ADR'd. So if you watch it, it's very strange and it doesn't really work. But also in 2013, he produces and has a small role as the one good white man
Oh, I was gonna bring this up.
in Steve McQueen's 12 Years a Slave, which weirdly gives him his first Academy Award. He before he won for acting, he won for producing 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah, that's just the shiftiest thing, because he like paid to get this movie made and then ensured that he cast himself as the most white savior in the history of the concept of white savior saviorism. Just shows up like, well, I'm not a racist. I'm actually from Canada. Like, we didn't even do racism up there. We're Canadians. So then he's like, I'll just pay some money and you'll be free. And the movie ends. Like, it's so bizarre. It makes no sense. When you know that he also paid for the movie, it's just the most like self-congratulatory bullshit casting.
Have you ever read like the actual guy's like accounting, like Solomon Northup's? So is that like a thing that happened? Was there actually like a Canadian guy?
Yeah,
because look,
I'm
tempted to blame Brad Pitt for that as well too. But we do, just to play devil's advocate, there is like a screenwriter that wrote that role.
Somebody like helped, and but it certainly wasn't exactly how you see it in the movie, because in the movie it's just so painfully white saviory, like it's deeply.
It's not great. Yeah, no, it's a really terrible character. I mean, it's ironic that he gave himself that role because he inadvertently gave himself the worst role in the movie. There's nothing to that character.
He should have played the slave.
He should have done that. He should have played Paul Giamatti's role, where he's just all like, I was about to say that. I felt bad about it.
I feel like he probably would have done just fine as the slave, considering he already did that great accent in Meet Joe Black.
Yeah, that's what he was working on. Yeah. He was
all set up for this.
Maybe someone else talked him out of that. So why don't you play this role instead, Brad?
I don't want to be a white savior. I'm Brad Pitt.
2014, he's
got like how many kids?
Less now. Less than he did. 2014, he's in the World War II movie Fury. Bunch of guys in a tank. 2015, he's back to having small roles in movies that he produces, because he's also in The Big Short, playing another ancillary character who doesn't really affect the movie all that much, but he's in it. He's also in a movie directed by his then wife, that she also stars in, By the Sea, which is maybe the most forgotten movie in both Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's filmography, but we will never carry it because didn't see it, looks boring. It's basically just like two people having marital problems who go on a vacation and maybe they start spying on the couple next door who having sexy sex.
It's such an epic team up though. Why didn't it work?
Yes. I also remember that's the movie that she debuted. The new name is all like a film by Angelina Jolie Pitt. And then, like 3 years later, she dropped that pit from that name, but we don't see that anymore.
She climbed out of that pit.
She exactly, yes, she did indeed, yes. 2016, he's in yet another World War drama, Allied, which we saw together in theaters.
Yeah, I only kind of remember that. Rachel Weisz, I want to say?
Marion Cotillard.
The Rachel Weisz of
France. Yes. 2017, he's in a forgotten Netflix war movie called War Machine. 2019, he is in the double hit of the weird sci-fi drama Ad Astra, where he goes to look for his dad at the far reaches of space. He finds some monkeys. He finds some space pirates. That movie's strange. But also, he's back with Quentin Tarantino in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he's great in that, and he gets that coveted Oscar finally. He's recognized for his acting for Best Supporting Actor, even though that is arguably a lead performance in that movie. But whatever, that's how they do that. That's how they give those awards out. And we gotta fill those trophies up. He takes a couple years off. 2022, he has a small role in the Sandra Bullock comedy The Lost City. And then Sandra Bullock has a small role in his comedy film Bullet Train. So they were kind of doing each other favors in that one. He's also in 2022 a movie that I love, Babylon, Damien Chazelle's Babylon, which he's really great in. I mean, like there's like a bunch of other performances in that, but like he's great as like now he's playing the aging Hollywood star that people are getting tired of, and he's on his way out, and maybe a little bit of art imitating life. No, Brad will go on forever. This star will never die.
Two-time Oscar winner.
Indeed. And then coming out later this year, as we mentioned on the last episode, he's back with George Clooney in the upcoming film Wolves. A couple of lone wolves.
Like Maple Leafs.
Yes, yes, exactly like that. Yes, the movie title that your English teacher absolutely hates. And he has a Formula One movie coming out from the director of Top Gun Maverick called Apex.
All right.
Yeah.
And so that's his whole filmography.
That's his whole filmography
and
up to now.
that's all the time we have for this episode.
Hey!
desperately don't want to talk about the Mexican. I'm taking it. Yeah.
This was your idea.
Well, we watched it.
We're watching we're talking about the goddamn Mexican.
All right, well, let's do that.
All right,
we'll
cool.
take a short break, and when we come back, we'll go south of the border.
Down Mexico way.
I immediately regret saying that.
Stay tuned.
This episode's going to be full of regrets.
We're in Canada, so just to be clear,
Racism does not exist.
south of 2 borders.
Oh, yeah, we got to go double border. Oh, I forgot about that.
All right, we're back. I think. Yeah, we're back.
We're back. I'm just having a drink of water. I mean, anyone can say anything.
Sure.
But we're back. The Mexican. It's directed by Gore Verbinski.
Blew my fucking mind when I saw that.
Yeah. So yeah, last week we talked about The Peacemaker, which was the first movie released by Studio DreamWorks. Gore Verbinski directed the third movie released by DreamWorks within that calendar year. His debut film was the 1997 film Mouse Hunt.
Remember Mouse Hunt, James?
Was that the one with Nathan Lane trying to hunt down the mouse in the mansion?
It was all like madcap capers.
Yeah,
the mouse kept getting away. It was very Tom and Jerry.
Yeah,
Except that Tom is Nathan Lane.
It was adorable, yeah.
Yeah.
Lee Evans is also there. That's a duo. That's a duo film. He's
I couldn't remember the guy's name, but yeah, I knew
he's a lesser known British actor, yeah. But I had the privilege of getting to see Mel Brooks's The Producers on the West End that starred Lee Evans as the Leo Bloom role. It was originally supposed to have Richard Dreyfuss in the Max Bialystock role. He apparently got replaced for being bad. And he was replaced by Nathan Lane, so I got to see the Mouse Hunt boys together in The Producers, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Richard Dreyfuss has had a real run lately.
He's had a great year.
Himself publicly.
He's had a fantastic year. Yeah, he's more relevant than ever.
Yeah, he's really making a fool of himself. Mouse Hunt, like a good movie. But I really feel like if you rewatch it, and I don't know why, I don't need to. I watched it so many times that I can just review it in my mind right now.
We were talking about it before the show. I want to rewatch it. And
it has such an unusual tone, and I feel like, when he was tapped to direct The Mexican, it was like they didn't watch Mouse Hunt. Like, his tone in that movie is so uneven, and, they're trying to do, like, a Tarantino Pulp Fiction-y thing. Like, you need to be a master of tone, and Mouse Hunt is like evidence that he's not a master of tone. He cannot deftly balance the comedy and the drama. It's weird. Nathan Lane carries the shit out of that movie and the mouse. But the tone is bizarre. Like it's an off-putting comedy. And it worked because of the madcapness.
Well, I think
it's a callback to like those old Laurel and Hardy buddy comedic duos. They got a problem. What do they got to do? Well, we inherited a house. We got to fix up the house. What's the catch? There's a mouse, little mouse like that, and then they're themselves getting. Yeah.
I feel like those '90s family comedies that were essentially about like a kid or animal gets one over on a couple of guys. They always had like this like undercurrent of darkness to them. Like Home Alone has that.
Richie Rich.
Dennis the Menace. Like Christopher Lloyd is genuinely terrifying in Dennis the Menace. Baby's Day Out. That baby's in peril.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good.
But Baby's Day Out, like, the tone of it is still very kind of sunny and goofy.
It's more consistent than Mouse Hunt, I'll say. Yeah,
like, it's just, like, the tone of Mouse Hunt is off-putting. And when they hooked him up to do this one, they should have known that they were going to get a tone that wasn't quite it.
The thing about Gore Verbinski is, as will be evidenced, I'll just quickly run down his films here. He's made, like, some of, like, the highest grossing blockbusters in recent film history, but he's not a director that has like a consistent style of his own. Like there's nothing necessary. You don't watch something and be all like, this is clearly a Gore Verbinski movie. Like he's not really an auteur.
Unless it's weirdly too long, then you know it's a Gore Verbinski movie.
Like this one.
Yes.
Yeah. So he does Mouse Hunt in 97. This is his second film in 2001. He immediately rebounds from this in 2002. I would say, like, in his filmography, he has 2 capital G great movies, and this is one of them. It's, of course, the American remake of The Ring. Which is like the first horror movie that like a ton of people our age saw because it was PG-13.
That was
we actually could get into the theater to see it.
A great use of his tone in that one, I think, because he's in that one you can see his talent for comedy.
A very funny movie.
His knack for comedy.
So he does The Ring. He immediately follows that up with Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, a movie that is in like a run of Disney being bankrupt and saying, I don't know, what if we made movies based on like the theme park rides? And it's Country Bears, it's Haunted Mansion, and that one is like the second of those 3 films to come out. And thanks to the performance of Johnny Depp, it inexplicably becomes one of like the biggest franchises in Hollywood that they will not let it die.
Yeah.
Even without Johnny Depp, they're all like, we'll do something with pirates. So they'll be in the Caribbean. There'll be some sort of skeleton characters there. But, The Curse of the Black Pearl, a pretty good movie, I think.
It's
It's pretty damn enjoyable.
Good
It's all
crowd.
Johnny Depp. He carries that.
Good crowd pleaser. Perfect example of the summer blockbuster I was talking about before, in the ways that The Mexican is not a blockbuster.
It's also not a summer blockbuster because The Mexican was released in March.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2011, I would say his other genuinely great movie, the animated film Rango.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Rango's great.
Once again, with Johnny Depp as his muse, just like a really interesting, unique movie that kind of doesn't look like anything else. Nothing else really looks like Rango. It's a very fun sort of movie to peek into behind the scenes because it's not a mocap movie, but the voice actors still rehearsed that movie like they were doing a live action movie. So, and then they filmed the rehearsal, so a lot of what the animated characters are doing in that's what the actual actors were doing on the day. It's really fun. It's like all of like the big voice actors just in like their shorts and t-shirts or whatever. It has a very community theater sense to it. And Rango's just like a fun sort of, again, a quite dark movie.
Yeah.
A movie that's ostensibly for children, and you watch it and you're all like, this is
an actual Western.
This a very weird tone as well. Maybe that's the Gore Verbinski calling card.
Yeah. And
weird
an
tone.
off-putting tone.
But then
Multiple things happening at once.
much like George Miller has his only Oscar for Happy Feet, Gore Verbinski has his Oscar for Rango, because that won Best Animated Feature. And at this point in time, Gore Verbinski is saying to himself, I just won an Oscar, I just made like 3 massive pirate movies, I'm on top of the world, I can do anything, nothing can bring me down. 2013, The Lone Ranger.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
One of the most cursed movies of all time. A movie that was despised by both critics and audiences, and makes the creative decision to cast Johnny Depp as a Native American, and also has the misfortune of casting the deeply canceled Armie Hammer as the titular Lone Ranger. Yeah,
But that was before we knew about the people eating shit.
Indeed, yes, but it was there.
People.
But he
Right.
was doing it. He was doing. Well, he was thinking about doing it. Armie Hammer's probably never eaten a person that we know of. He's definitely never eaten anyone famous, and that's really the important thing.
Yeah. No one whose name we know at the moment.
Yeah. And that movie basically sent him to director jail. He has directed one movie since then, the 2016 horror film A Cure for Wellness.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's.
I don't really remember much about it. There's like eels in it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
movie has like a big twist that like just doesn't work.
But yeah, that's his last film to date. He has like a couple of things in production. He has an upcoming movie called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
That's a great thing to put on a fucking marquee. Jesus. I think I'll give that one a miss.
This is a time travel Sam Rockwell action film. I don't know, it could be
that's
alright.
weird.
I
I
like
love
some
Sam
stuff,
Rockwell.
yeah. But yeah, there we go. That's the man's filmography. I forgot to mention he did a ton of commercials, including the famous Budweiser Frogs commercials.
That's Gore Verbinski.
That is Gore Verbinski's calling card into Hollywood, is Budweiser.
very uneven tone in that one.
Yeah.
All right, well, now we can finally talk about the Mexican, and there's so much to discuss.
Oh, yes.
You want to lead us off?
Oh, okay.
How about that film there?
Sure, yeah. Oh, okay.
How about that motion picture?
The Mexican is about a guy named Brad Pitt. Even though his name in the movie is Jerry, I'm going to call him Brad Pitt throughout this recap. He is deeply in debt to a gangster, a crime boss, because 5 years prior to the events of this movie, he rear-ended him, and the guy had like a body in the trunk, so he got sent off to prison. But instead of just, him sending his guys off to Brad Pitt, he became like a random errand boy. And this has really been trying on Brad Pitt's girlfriend, his love of his life, the ever shrill Julia Roberts.
Oh my god, is she shrill in this film?
the main and immediate problem with this movie is that, as we said before, it's not quite a romance, but it's definitely a movie that is selling an audience on the idea that Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts are going to be a couple in this movie. And what it's largely about is about two unlikable assholes. And the entire movie, it's like so many different things happen. There's so many random plot threads going on, but like the big question at the end of it is like, are these crazy kids going to get together in the end? Are they going to be able to work it out?
Will love triumph over all?
And and me as an audience member, I just fundamentally could not give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't care about these two. They're really unpleasant.
Yeah, one of the kind of criticisms of this film, famously, is that it's billed as them together, and they spend most of the film apart. But I actually feel like that criticism doesn't get to the real problem, which is that when they're together,
they're at each other's throats.
Yeah, and
the movie's intolerable.
So unwatchable, right? And they're just not believable as a couple. They're not fun. Like, they don't have any good on-screen chemistry. It's awful. Like, when they're apart, you can see that Julia Roberts, at least, has on-screen chemistry with another actor, right?
Yes.
James Gandolfini. Like, well, that's the movie I would watch.
Oh yeah, I had that thought a couple times. But yes, their entire relationship is exactly something that we've all experienced before, which is you're in your apartment and you can hear an argument in the next apartment over, and you're just like, oh fucking God, like, do I call the cops on these guys? Do I go for a walk? Like, do I knock on the door and tell them to keep it down? I didn't want these two to be together because they're just at each other's throats nonstop.
I didn't want these two to be the protagonists of the movie that I was watching. I would have been happy if a certain someone else was the lead of the movie, but we'll get to that.
But also on top of that, like you were mentioning that they just don't have any fun chemistry together. Listening to their arguments, they're flubbing lines left, right, and center, too.
You cannot use that against me. We are not even technically married yet, but I go, don't I? Yes, the whole group thinks we're married. I accepted the potato slicer graciously for our anniversary.
You're back to the same old selfish, self-involved, vile, disgusting
God, you...
self.
If I don't go, I'm dead. And it's a little difficult to carry on a relationship if I'm stuffed with straw and formaldehyde.
And
Well-known A-listers here, and
they're just like making it part of like their characters or whatever. Like Julia Roberts is Sam is she's just like very flighty or whatever, and she does a lot. She sounds like me. She's like, listen, Jerry, I'm gonna do that, and it's like she's talking so fast, like her brain doesn't have time to form the words in her mouth,
which is realistic, but I don't expect that was intentional for this movie. I think they just kept a cut going, and this movie lucked out by getting two massive A-listers in this cast. The movie is sold on the fact that these two are in the movie. They really didn't need to be the ones in this movie.
No, yeah, I kept watching it thinking, like, this movie is a great movie if it's from the perspective of James Gandolfini.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt is played by, like, a lesser-known character actor, who can do something with how little he actually has to do in the movie.
A lot of the budget went towards keeping these two happy on set.
Clearly.
The framework of this story kind of has the feeling of something like you might see come out of like the 70s. It kind of has like this sort of shambly, shaggy dog type sort of Altman-esque feeling to it. It's just like the plot of it is so random, and it kind of feels like nothing matters. And you can make movies that are like that.
Sure.
It's just, yes, by putting like these two megastars into the movie, it becomes a different sort of movie. And neither of them are on the right wavelength that they need to be playing these characters in this situation. Let's go back to what you were saying about Brad Pitt rear-ended this mob boss's car. So, like, the first shot of this movie, the opening shot and the closing shot of this movie are parallel in that they both focus on traffic lights. And the opening shot of this movie over the credits is we see...
I do appreciate shit like that. I like a good bookend shot.
We see the traffic light and it's green, and then it flashes to yellow, and then it like short circuits or does like an error or whatever, because instead of going to red, it goes back to green, and we hear like a car rear end in another car, and then it cuts to the Mexican, and it's like, okay, we have no context for what that is. And then as the movie goes on, as you said, Brad Pitt rear-ended this mob boss's car, and as a result, sent the mob boss to prison, but I guess through some realizing, because he has fingers in a lot of different pies or whatever, the mob boss is still able to strong arm Brad Pitt into ostensibly becoming a criminal. Because we never actually learn what Jerry's deal is before he became indebted to this mob boss. We don't know if he was a criminal beforehand or whatever. It's just like now he's essentially being blackmailed under threat of death, one assumes, to working for this mob boss. And Julia Roberts is just like fully pissed off at him because of this situation. And it's just such a great showcase of what a terrible person this character is. It's all like, why is she getting so mad at her boyfriend for a situation that is completely out of his control?
This is actually one of the big failings of the script, right? It's not even like, so Julie Roberts' character, terrible person, but like Brad Pitt's character, terrible character. What does he want at any point in this movie? Like, yeah, he wants, it's his last job or whatever, and he wants to get out. But he doesn't actually want anything. He's not eager to get back to Julia Roberts. He's not, often in these movies, they'll have like a postcard of Aruba, and they're like, oh, when I'm done this, I'm going to Aruba. He doesn't even have that. Like, and he doesn't seem that troubled by any of the stuff that's happening. He just kind of rolls his eyes and goes along with it. Like he picks up that dog at some point, for whatever reason. But there's no want at all from this character. Yearning. There's nothing he's after. And so, like, by the end of the movie, it's like, I guess it all worked out for him. He's like, oh, I actually wanted Julia Roberts. No, you didn't. We watched the whole long movie, and you didn't want any of the stuff you got by the end.
They mentioned a couple of times that they're going through couples therapy together, and his entire attitude towards it is like he is begrudgingly doing that because that's what his girlfriend wants to do. And when, he has to take on this other job and she's throwing all like their dirty laundry out in his face, it becomes too much for him. And they saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, she's going to Vegas, whether he's coming with her or not. He's like, fine by me, toots.
Yeah, he's totally ambivalent to pretty much everything that happens in the film. And so it's hard to root for him because we don't know what he wants.
He's also just an incredible dumbass. In a long line of Brad Pitt playing like dumb blonde characters.
He's like the least charming I've ever seen him playing like one of these wastrel kind of characters.
Yeah, whenever he has to like exert like any type of authority, like whenever he like walks into a bar full of like random toughs or whatever, he immediately just like melts into like a puddle of goo, and it's just like, and I don't buy it. I don't buy it coming from 2001 Brad Pitt. Like he just doesn't
he was just Tyler Durden.
Exactly. He just was like the other day. Yeah.
So he gets called into the office of the crime boss's number 2, who's like running things for the guy.
Played by the great Bob Balaban.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Just absolutely killing it. Just like I love like just like the quiet menace that he has.
Absolutely.
He'll threaten you and he'll slowly eat a bag of Doritos, and it's just it's very cool. It's very chilling.
His little reveal at the end where he's like, are you here? And then Julie Roberts is like, I'm here. And then he's like, I'm here too. And he steps into the doorway. Yeah. Oh, that was like the one good scene in the film.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great.
Because he's just like, me too. Like, he couldn't be bothered. He really couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, he holds all the cards. Yeah. So he sends his runner to go and collect Brad Pitt.
His runner, played by...
Brad Pitt goes down the stairs and he meets haired J.K. Simmons. And I was like, whoa.
A very distracting comb over that none of us are buying.
Is that a wig? Where are we at? Is
gotta
that
be a wig.
On JK? Yeah, I think that's Bob. I don't think that's his natural hair. I'm just guessing. Yeah. This is literally the year before the first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, it's weird. Like every time he was on screen, I was like, you better get him pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's a year before like he gives like the universally accepted best depiction of a comic book character that's ever existed in any medium whatsoever, and he becomes like everyone's favorite character guy to show up for a couple of scenes and just absolutely kill it. And he's a very likable presence in this movie too. Unfortunately, the movie kind of forgets about him.
Is he still just
he doesn't get an ending,
handcuffed to the bar? And
no, we'll get to it, but the movie flat out forgets about him and just
But essentially, he's another criminal in the employ of the crime lord. He seems to be on the best terms with Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt seems to be on the best terms with J.K. Simmons' character, who I'm just going to call J.K. Simmons.
Yeah. We're not calling any of these people by their actual names.
Exactly.
So Bob Balaban, we learned that Brad Pitt was supposed to have like one last job, but he fucked that job up because Julia Roberts hid his keys and he was late for a meeting. So once again, Julia...
He's still in the employ of this does not solve the issue that you have with this guy.
Exactly. He was in a position to get out from under these guys and take you to Vegas, Julia Roberts, but...
By your own hand.
I'll just say it, because of your meddling, he ended up in this. So really, you're creating your own problems. Yeah, but she doesn't like the fact that he has to go to Mexico and retrieve...
The Mexican, which is a type of gun.
the titular pistolero of the title. And it's never been made explicit or anything like that. I have to imagine calling the gun the Mexican. That's the name that the Americans have for the gun. No actual Mexican gunsmith is going to create like the world's most beautiful gun and name it after the country that he currently lives in.
Yeah, no, in
that would
Mexico,
be weird.
It's called the gun.
It's called the gun.
Or it's named after the town, but like all us gringos can't pronounce it properly. So.
Yeah, exactly. It has a much cooler name. That means Desert Scorpion or something. Yeah.
I will say that I did appreciate this mythology that the movie keeps going back to about the gun, like the reason that it's so special, and they keep changing the story of this. There's always the constants and there's always the variables each time that this story is being counted. The first time we hear about it, there was this legendary gunsmith in an old dusty town in rural Mexico, and he was tasked with building this gun for a wealthy landowner as part of a marriage pact between the landowner's son and the poor gunsmith's beautiful daughter.
As you do.
And when they were demoing the gun, when it was finally built, and it was the most beautiful handgun you'd ever seen in your entire life, it backfired and it killed the gunsmith. And now there's like, oh, it's a cursed gun. And that's the very first time we hear any kind of backstory about the gun.
So it's this mystical MacGuffin that everyone's trying to get their hands on. But when you really boil it down, everyone is like shooting each other and jumping over each other to get a gun that does not work.
No.
That works so badly it kills the person firing it.
And the film is not that interested in showcasing. Like, it's supposed to be this legendary, beautiful gun, but there really aren't that many like shots just like admiring the gun. They'll be like, "There's the gun over there," and it'll be like poorly lit in a glove box, or like, you know, it's strange that like the film doesn't really do a good job of giving you awe for the gun.
It's not really treated like a MacGuffin. It's not treated like the mysterious suitcase from Pulp Fiction or whatever. Like,
the Mexican is no Infinity Stone.
Not at all. Yeah. There's multiple scenes where like Brad Pitt is like running after someone who's just stolen the Mexican. He's all like, "Give me the gun," and then I have to remind myself, "Oh no, that's the Mexican. That's the gun." Yeah. He's just not. He's treating it like a paperweight. Like he's like throwing it around.
Yeah, for something that is like a one of a kind, immeasurably valuable gun. Yeah, as you're saying, they're stuffing it in glove boxes. They're like sliding it across tables and everything. I would have appreciated if it was like just always kept in a box, and then we can always see like, you know, this ornate box that we know has the Mexican in it is like tossed out of their hands, and you can have like these beauty shots of it arcing in the sky, getting reflected off the sunlight or something.
Yeah, it just seems like you could have done like a nice slow motion shot where it's
he was going to kick it all the way back to the U.S. or something.
Julia Roberts throws all of his clothes off of the balcony and what have you, and he takes a plane and he lands in Mexico. And
I want to interrupt the balcony scene.
Yeah,
they are both talking at such a muted volume, considering they're shouting from like a balcony down to the ground floor, and like that whole scene, I was just so put off by like they're using indoor voices. It's really like, go back and watch this. Mm-hmm. Indoor voices. Like on Julia Roberts isn't.
Julia Roberts is screaming at the top of her lungs.
She's like screaming, but she's still doing it in an indoor voice. It's so bizarre. And Brad Pitt is down there, like he's several floors down, and he's just like, calm down.
He's a little unaffected. Yeah. Your Brad Pitt is Charles Bronson. I like that. Hey, calm down, you dizzy broad. Hey, what are you doing?
Hey, shut up.
So, I have to imagine it's because they didn't get the good filming permits there. And so, like, we can't waste daytime. You know, we're only going to get so few takes of this. Don't blow out your vocal cords. Just power through the line as best you can.
Yeah.
Because we got to get through the rest of the Mexican.
There's a lot more Mexican.
Yeah, a lot more Mexican to come.
So he flies to Mexico, and you know he's in Mexico because the color correction is yellow. That's how you know you're in Mexico when everything is yellow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steven Soderbergh, for ruining that country in movies. For like, that's a trope that you still see today.
I love when, like, so there's this, like, the dumb ringer that they only do the rule of 2 for, where every time an American goes to the car rental place, they say, like, what's my car? Is it, you're getting a Chrysler? Well, you know, when in Rome, when in Mexico, can I get something a little bit more authentically Mexican? I don't think anyone has ever done that when they're traveling abroad and they have to rent a car. You're renting, like, the cheapest goddamn thing you can find.
Yeah.
Well, but he has like mob money, you know. He's given like an allowance, I imagine. So this is his last job, so he wants to have his bitchin' El Camino, which
I will say that's a pretty good call because it's a
El
sick
Camino.
car.
It's a sick fucking car. That moment, for some reason, they thought that was going to be like the show me the money, because if you watch the trailer for this movie, that's like the title thing that happens. It's like the Mexican, and then it's just Brad Pitt sitting in the car going El Camino, and it's like that's not even a joke.
The trailer kind of made it seem like the Mexican would be the car. You know, and you're right, like the rule of 3, like, I wonder if maybe they cut a scene where a third person did this, or maybe like a second time Brad Pitt does it, because like when you get that repeat, clearly this is supposed to adhere to the classic rule of 3. And like, I mean, that's just it shows a real lack of care.
Yeah, but we didn't need the movie to be any longer than it was, so that's fine.
They probably couldn't afford a third El Camino to rent out. So he takes the car. He finds himself in like this quite impoverished town.
Everywhere they go in Mexico looks quite impoverished in this film. It's weird. It's like, you know, they do build buildings in Mexico, like.
I mean, like, we almost don't even need to say it, but like, this is a very xenophobic movie. It's really just like
once again we've stumbled on a movie that does minorities a disservice.
But I mean, like, in a movie called The Mexican, in which like the 2 stars are Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts, we probably could have guessed that there would have been like this sense of otherness around there. I mean, like there's like a whole subplot where this group of Mexican gentlemen who we later learn the history of or whatever, steal his car. And this is where Brad Pitt starts dropping his all like, what's wrong with you people? Why would you do this? And it's just all like, okay, cool. It's just reinforcing like these tired stereotypes that Mexicans are car thieves and what have you.
It also this movie has that classic Hollywood trope of like, you go to another country and you find a white person who's somehow kind of in charge of everything. So like David Krumholtz is in this, right?
The great
It's
David
like,
Krumholtz.
he's
I was
great.
so happy to see him.
Oh, he's great. I'll never see David Krumholtz without thinking of his brief role in This Is the End, where he says, "I'm gonna give you my full weight." Do you remember this moment?
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, sure." He's like, "Oh, you can handle my full weight."
Krumholtz plays Beck, who, like, as you say, is his contact, and he's the one that has the Mexican. He's just, again, there's no big, huge reveal or whatever. He just takes. Did either of you notice this? Because what happens is he goes to the bar, he meets Krumholtz. Krumholtz says, like, I can't show you this here. Come on, we got to go to, like, a private room or whatever. And he goes to, like, a private room. He takes out the Mexican. He, like, unwraps it. He shows it to Brad Pitt. He starts telling the first version of the story in this back room. And by the end of the story...
They're back at the table.
So what happened? Did they, like, walk and talk back to the table? How did they get back there?
I'm still unclear also of how he died. I watched it. I was there.
Yeah.
And he just kind of fell down. I thought he fell down because he was so drunk.
No, what happened?
He was dead.
There's some kind of celebration that's going on in this village. Kids are running around with sparklers. There's like a guy with like a weird paper mache head that's jumping in front of cars, as you do. And the locals are shooting off their pistols in celebration.
Right.
Like,
they're all going very Speedy Gonzalez in a
It's-
very racist way.
Speaking Gonzalez, also name-checked in this movie, because of course he was.
But it's a freak accident. It's a stray bullet.
Oh, a bullet hits.
Yeah.
All right,
So Brad Pitt assumes that he just passed out drunk because he's doing some of the worst fucking drunk acting I've ever seen, where he's not slurring his words, but he's like walking around like a drunken sailor.
And he wasn't behaving that way in the scene previous.
Yeah.
Not when he was telling the first of 3 in a great use of the rule of 3 of these
stories, yeah.
ridiculous lores of the Mexican.
But he falls over. Pitt puts him into the front seat of the El Camino, and that's where he sees that he has a bloody head wound. He checks the back. He sees the bullet hole through the head. He sees the bullet hole through the hat. Yeah.
There's like blood all over like the El Camino seats, and even then Brad Pitt hasn't put two and two together, and it takes for him to see like the actual bullet hole in the skull before he realizes what has happened.
Like, what? Oh, come on.
And
What?
He like.
Some of his reactions in this movie, some of the lines for this guy to react with are brutal.
Well, again, like I just watched the trailer the other day, and I remember this from like when the trailer came out, like in theater, seeing the trailer. He has that moment when the car gets stolen, where he doesn't just say "Oh no," he goes, "Oh no!" And it's just the most over the top way anyone has ever said that phrase.
It's Tim Robinson in the Sammy Paradise. I'm broke. I'm a dead man. If I'm dying tonight, I'm eating filet mignon.
So Krumholtz is dead. Who knows how? But he's dead.
Do.
It's a mystery to everyone, Jameson. No one knows.
He calls up J.K. Simmons. He says, "I don't have pictures for Spider-Man, but hey, Krumholtz is dead." And J.K. Simmons says, "Hey, well, that's bad news because that's actually the grandson of the crime lord that's in jail. You better make sure."
What?
Yeah.
So, like, at the end, when we meet the crime lord, and he's not at all torn up about his grandson...
It's a little sad.
Does he?
He mentions it.
Maybe I was
He says, this guy's son died,
Things
and
are
my
more-
grandson died, and it's all sad.
maybe
We're
I
all
was-
sad
I
here.
was just so starstruck by who was playing the crime lord.
We'll get to it.
Secret reveal.
While all this is going on, the El Camino is carjacked. And they take it for a joyride. I will say another thing I appreciate about this movie is there are multiple scenes of where someone's in the foreground and there's clearly some business, some important plot business happening directly behind them, just out of focus. I don't know, it perks your interest a little.
We later learned some more information about these guys who are stealing the car, and they've been hired by someone to get the gun from Brad Pitt, because that's what everyone in this movie is about. They're all trying to get the Mexican. They're all trying to get the gun. And they're all like, okay, well, the gun is in this car, so we'll steal the car. They're still stealing a car with a very visible corpse in the front seat. And it's just like, and like later on when Brad Pitt meets up with these people and he's like torturing the one guy's all like, I didn't know there was a dead gringo in the front seat. Bullshit! How can you not see? There's blood everywhere. Krumholtz is just dead. You can't steal a car and not notice a dead Krumholtz next to you. The full weight of his body is leaning on you.
Oh, you can handle my full weight.
All right, should we talk about the
best
parts
actor
of this movie?
the best performance in this movie, the one that I wanted so much more of.
So while all of this is going on back in the States, on the way to Vegas, Julia Roberts runs afoul some hitmen. One hitman corners her in the washroom, saying that, like, we know that your boyfriend is on the way to get the Mexican from Mexico, and we're gonna, in case he tries anything.
Just so you know, not that Canadian Mexican. No, not that. Yeah,
but
that's the sequel.
But in case he tries to do anything stupid for insurance, we're gonna hold you captive during all this. And she is saved by, I suppose, another hitman that we won't reveal too much about how it wraps up.
There's a mystery.
There's a mystery surrounding this character, but it doesn't matter because she is apprehended by James Gandolfini as just the best fucking character in this movie.
He's so good. The middle of this movie just sings with James Gandolfini.
Every scene with him is the best part of this fucking movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm repeating myself because the last time we covered a movie with him in it was Violet and Daisy, Jameson, and I wouldn't shut up about how good he is in that movie too. But I'm just gonna repeat myself. He gives a genuinely good performance in this not terribly good movie. Like I would have nominated him for something in this because he gets some real depth and sympathy to like this really fleshed out character. So yeah, he's playing a competing hitman named Leroy. We'll come back to it. But yes, this is Leroy who now has taken Sam. He has basically kidnapped Sam.
Yeah.
And
as he says,
that's
Julia Roberts. I'm sorry. I'll use their proper names. I apologize.
As he tells her, I'm just here to regulate funkiness.
I'm so glad you said it. I circled that too. That's also the line of the movie. That's also undisputably the line of the movie.
So you are gonna kill me. turns out fine and Jerry comes through without this all getting funky, I don't think that'll happen. He brings me the pistol, I give you to him. I'm just here to regulate funkiness.
Guys, I'm pretty sure that's what we collectively do, right?
We regulate funkiness?
We regulate
Absolutely.
funkiness as a trio, yeah.
They call us the funkiness regulator.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and so, like, they just spent, like, the whole time bonding. You know, and initially she's trying to get away because he's the scary hitman who she is seen as, like, quite dangerous and holds his own in a fight. She tries to escape by going out the rear window of a gas station bathroom. He's right there waiting for her.
And here's the other thing about Gandolfini in this movie. He's not scary.
No.
Is the thing. Is like he shows like this like tremendous sympathetic, soulful, romantic side to him.
Mm-hmm.
But when he has to be, he's very like at certain points he's just all like shut up. He's like pushing Julia Roberts.
Yeah,
he's
there's
like
that scene where he puts his hand on her throat while he talks to the hotel director.
And they've had so many like personal moments at that point in time, but just at like the drop of a hat when the chips are down, his first instinct is to grab her throat and just be all like, don't fucking say anything. And it's this perfect blending of like, don't fuck with this guy, but also he's a big teddy bear.
Well, it's great because they're going to be spending a lot of time with each other. So what are we going to do? Oh, let's get to know each other. So you're Brad Pitt's wife, right? No, we're not together. Oh, why is that? Well, he just doesn't get me, and we're going through therapy. And, you know, he balances the both of, like, reassuring her that he does, in fact, love her, even though he's not showing it the right way, that maybe she's getting a little too in her own insecurities. And it's brilliant, and it's so thoughtful and beautiful. There's so much depth to this character.
And of course, we haven't yet talked about the other key part of this character is that he is gay, and so much of that is part of the character. And I would say the only genuine surprise I got from this movie is how sensitive this 2001 movie treats this character. He's his sexuality is never once the butt of a single joke. It's taken completely at face value. He gets this very sweet little romance that like broke my heart. And like, you know, Julia Roberts' character she has like her own like intentions. She has like her own goals. She ultimately does want to get away from James Gandolfini, but also she's like cheering him on. She's all like, yeah, go kiss that guy. Yeah. That would be nice if you kissed him.
Meets that cute postal worker at the diner, and then all of a sudden they're on their way to Vegas together. Her and her two gay best friends. Yeah. It's really heartwarming.
That diner scene is like, that's the best scene in this film, really, right? Where she's like, oh, you guys had that little moment. And he's like, what moment? And then they go back and forth, and there's like a 30-second bit where like this clunky failure of a film somehow manages to pull off back-to-back gay jokes and rape jokes, right? And like does it deftly and charmingly, and you like everyone better after that. And then the rest of the movie progresses. And then squander all that goodwill.
And then the movie continues. Yes, unfortunately.
It's insane. It's like, well, where's this scene? It should be in a better movie.
I mean, my absolute favorite part of this movie, they mentioned that James Gandolfini and the postal worker, Frank, they spend the night together. And because they were drinking before, he just absentmindedly put his gun out somewhere where the postal worker can see it. And the very next day, the postal worker looks at him and says, it doesn't matter what the past is. It matters what the future is. Single tear comes out of James Gandolfini's eyes. And he says, I haven't cried in 12 years. What are you looking at? And I'm just like, so many emotional beats to unpack and something like that. It was breathtaking. I loved it.
It will never not be a tragedy that we lost him as early as we did, because he really was one of our finest actors.
Yeah, and he won. And he was just coming into his own.
Absolutely, yeah. And by all, like a truly fantastic actor that elevates most movies that he's in, and by all accounts, just an absolutely lovely person. So of course he was taken way too soon. And he's hands down the best part of this movie. Well, let's check
back to the worst parts of this movie.
Back to Mexico, where we're having a great time.
We're all just in tears talking about James Gandolfini's mid-film performance.
Meanwhile, Brad Pitt's literally riding on a burro.
saying like, "Hey, I need to borrow your El Trucco to go to the next El Town."
Oh, that line made it into the trailer. Let me tell you much.
That brought back a very painfully cringe memory I had when I was in Puerto Vallarta with my uncle, and he forgot to pack a comb. So we're in a drugstore, and he's trying to ask the locals where to go, but he doesn't speak a lick of Spanish. So he's like, "I'm looking for Como." El Como, not knowing that, Como is already a word in Spanish. Whatever. And that's what that fucking scene reminded me of.
That's funny, too, because, like, a comb is a very easy thing to just mime.
Yeah.
Just do this, and then most people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But he happens to find, he gets another car. He manages to sell his watch to get, like, this rusty bucket of a truck.
That comes with its own dog.
Yeah, his own canine sidekick that sticks around a lot longer than I thought he would.
This dog keeps coming back and forth, and there's like a moment at like the very end where it's all like, was this dog secretly engineering like everything that happened in it? Because he has like this wistful little moment where he looks at the drug lord and it's all like, my work is done here.
Yeah.
I like that the dog has clearly been held at gunpoint a few times
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like he points the gun and the
Brad
dog's
keeps
like,
pointing the gun at this fucking dog.
Oh, that's another gun situation.
But hey,
right?
guess
So
what? That's a language that the dog apparently speaks because
it's a Mexican dog and the film is racist.
Brad Pitt happens to find the El Camino and crashes into it to alert the carjackers. They bust out of the bar. He holds them at gunpoint, gets the Mexican back.
It's amazing that this works.
Yeah.
That this plan actually, it's like, okay, this is going to be like the next like comedic setup for Brad Pitt to like fail or whatever. No, he gets the Mexican back pretty quickly and we're on to like the next part of the movie. It's almost like none of these scenes matter.
Yeah.
It's almost like the gun didn't need to be taken in the first place, but whatever, we're here now.
Yeah, and then it gets taken from him a second time when a police officer comes by and happens, the first person to notice the fucking bloodstains in the front of the car, arrests Brad Pitt, and that's where I guess he happens to find the Mexican on his person, and he gives us the second backstory of the gun, which details that the gunsmith's assistant was actually in love with his daughter, and he sabotaged the production of the gun so that it would still misfire. So still, even after with this further detail, it's a shitty gun.
It's not a good gun.
Not a good gun.
Yeah, the gun doesn't work. And then the cop lets Brad Pitt go, and he says, but I'm keeping the Mexican. And, well, he doesn't say that because he actually is Mexican. So
I'm keeping the gun.
I'm keeping gun.
Quit calling this the Mexican.
And then I guess, that's our word. And he takes it to a pawn shop. Why? Did you remember why?
I don't remember.
Because I guess this is the next plot point where like the movie has to go.
I
don't remember. Like I don't remember what his motivation was for taking the gun.
Yeah,
to
all
the,
I remember is him saying like
probably.
this gun doesn't belong to you. That's all I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone is working for this other crime boss, because there's like a Mexican crime boss, and then there's Margulies, the American crime boss that Bob Balaban and everyone else is working for. And I feel like, because it's an eventual reveal that they've been trying to get the gun back to the Mexican crime boss, who we learn is like a descendant of the gunsmith or whatever, and it belongs to his family. But I feel like anytime a Mexican character is badly defined in super broad strokes, you can just say, he was working for that guy. He was trying to get it over there and everything.
I did like that the bad guy's name was Margulies, because every time they'd say it, I'd be like, Juliana Margulies? Like, what's her business with the Mexican?
Just takes you right out of the fucking movie.
Yeah, it did. I had to turn the subtitles on so that I could see how that was spelled and stop confusing
It's spelled
myself.
differently, I think.
It's spelled
Yeah,
differently.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
All right. The fuck happens next? Well, he calls J.K. Simmons.
Yep. He shows up in Mexico in his own El Camino.
It's the rule of threes, except they forgot to do the third one. So yes, he also gets an El Camino.
And they're just talking about like what they're going to do, how they're going to go after the pawn shop. But I guess that morning, Brad Pitt overhears J.K. Simmons on the phone doing the heavily implied, you want me, I should whack him.
And J.K. Simmons has a lot of reservations. You can tell that he probably genuinely likes Brad Pitt and he doesn't want to have to do it, but Bob Balaban is putting him in between a rock and a hard place. And in point of fact, we never actually learn J.K. Simmons' true intentions. Because the movie forgets about him.
Yeah.
And they go into the pawn shop. They're able to get the gun back from the pawn store owner as J.K. Simmons is handcuffing him to the sideboard or whatever. Brad Pitt pulls a gun on him and says, like, I know you're going to betray me, so you have to cuff yourself as well. And J.K. Simmons just like, what the fuck, man? Like, what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
You know, it's all like, I'm just one cog in the wheel or whatever. And we never really learned whether or not he was going to follow through with that, because that's the last scene J.K. Simmons is in. He gets back to the pawn shop at one point in time. We find that J.K. Simmons and the pawn store owner have found a way to uncuff themselves.
But he's just gonna, I don't know.
But he's gone. He's in the wind.
Yeah.
He's out of there. Like, no, J.K. Simmons' whereabouts unknown.
Yeah.
They just forgot to write an ending to that character.
Well, the last we see him in the movie is Brad Pitt is at the airport. He wants to hop a flight back to the States, but apparently he had the wrong passport on him. He had J.K. Simmons' passport. That's the last time we see J.K. Simmons in the movie. It's his passport picture.
Just like such a groan-inducing scene, because it felt like, you know,
God, the movie has to keep going.
yeah, it felt like they're extending the movie, they're extending his, you know, his duration in Mexico, but like a better script comes up with a better reason to delay him.
You somehow swapped passports in a scene we didn't see happen?
Yeah, and then he just like goes back. Like it was like, oh, come on. Like if there was a spot to cut in this movie for time, and this movie could have cut some stuff, certainly that scene.
Cut the, I mean, like, if he has to go back to get his passport from J.K. Simmons, fine. Certainly cut all the interstitial scenes where he's driving the same patch of road that we've already seen him drive like three times at this point. And it's like, if the scenery was like focusing on, like, I don't know, funny or obscure landmarks or whatever, and it's all like, hey, this is the third time he passed the chicken statue or whatever, but it's not even that. It's just like boring, like
Dusty roads.
Yeah, dusty roads, exactly.
They did nothing with that, and there's like a rule of three they could have done there, right?
Yeah.
He keeps passing this. Yeah,
The closest thing they do with that is, you know, every time he comes up to this one crossroad where there's the one single stoplight, he's stopping at a red, looks every direction he can, because, you know, he has that history of running a red light, but it looks like there's no oncoming traffic, and he inches ever closer and vroom, almost gets hit by a car. So I guess that's another theme of him just like not learning from his mistakes.
Well, I thought that was the classic setup of, like, he's at the stoplight, he's at the crossroads, he's looking around, he doesn't see anything, the light's not turning green, so he just like inches forward, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere a cop just shows up.
Yeah.
But no, they just did like the less interesting version of that. They just have the Final Destination truck go by. Just,
Quickly back to James Gandolfini.
oh, please. Oh, can we stay here for a while, actually?
James.
Can we stay here and never leave?
So I want to talk about the scene where the morning after their first night in Vegas, James and Julia are just having breakfast somewhere. Postman, I guess, hasn't woken up yet, so he's back at the hotel room.
Yeah, it's weird that they didn't invite Frank for brunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Frank seems like he would love brunch.
Absolutely, yeah.
They killed him by being very thoughtless.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's hungry too. It's the morning.
It turns out the original hitman did not die. I think he just got shot in the hand, and I misremembered that.
Yes.
But he shows up at the hotel again.
Now, because they spend so long sort of like dancing around what happens here, so Gandolfini and Roberts come back to the hotel. There's like an ambulance and like a crowd of people. They ask what happened. Someone said someone committed suicide. Someone jumped off their balcony. I'm immediately going like, oh no, Frank, oh no.
Yeah, we know exactly who it is.
But because they're being like a little coy, and because of the way like the sort of like that scene is like edited and staged and everything, I thought for the briefest of seconds they were going to do like a switcheroo. And it turns out that Frank is like a secret fourth assassin or hitman or something along those lines. But again, no, they go the least interesting route. And yeah, and they just have this previous hitman character throw poor Frank off the balcony. He's the sacrificial gay. It's a real bummer. I mean, it's the same as any trope where it's like a character gets like a sweet love interest, and then they end up dead for no fault of their own.
I'll add that there's a huge problem with this scene because the hotel manager has just knocked on the door. Right?
Yeah,
he's going door to door, alerting every guest.
How do they
try to figure? How do they not hear like the 7 gunshots? He's at the next door, right? Like that just happened.
Also, for that matter, how do they not know immediately which hotel room it is that the person jumped out of the balcony. They can go to the outside of the
Very
hotel.
windy. Very
Yeah.
windy.
He
was a very thin man.
He traveled very far. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
he jumped really far.
really paper thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he felt like this. Woo, woo,
Yeah.
woo.
Hello, sir. We happen to know that someone from your room jumped out from this room. Is everyone in your family accounted for? Like, we've already sent the coroner through
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And the two of them are walking through the hallway as like the hotel manager is knocking on like two rooms adjacent from them, and then they just like open up their key card, they get inside, and then by the time the hotel manager gets there, it's like knock knock knock. Oh, did you and your wife see anything? You just saw them in the hallway.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
passed you, and don't tell me you didn't recognize them because one of them is James Gandolfini, the most recognizable human on the planet.
Yeah.
So no one looks like him. So yeah, that's silly. So
They kill the other hitman. Julia Roberts, sees that, oh shit, James Gandolfini is still quite a dangerous man.
also killed his possible boyfriend.
Yeah.
Someone who made him cry for the first time in 12 years. So yeah, that's his revenge is very necessary in that moment.
Oh fuck, what happens at this point? Do we gotta go back to Brad Pitt?
The movie almost ends. Like we're
Yeah.
at the end of
Okay.
the movie.
Brad,
that is good.
Brad Pitt is about to get out of Mexico, but he realizes he has J.K. Simmons' passport, so he has to go back. He misses his flight, so Gandolfini is getting on the phone with Balaban or whoever.
Says, go to Mexico.
It's also at this point yet another plot thread we throw in here that we find out that Bob Balaban is planning on betraying Margulies because he's
Right.
trying to find a buyer for the gun. But we don't have time to talk about this. There's so much other shit going
Yeah.
on. Bob Balaban's a bad guy.
Yeah.
What more do you need to know? So James Gandolfini finds out that Brad Pitt is still in Mexico. So now him and Julia have to fly to Mexico. So now everyone is in Mexico.
Presumably, he also wanted an El Camino, but
That would have been the rule of
That
three.
was it. There was the scene, and they just. I feel like maybe they did it and then they cut it.
yeah.
Or what they do is they subvert it, and he goes to like the same rent-a-car guy, and like because he's an American, like the third guy is all like, "Let me guess, you want the El Camino?" He's just all like, "No, I want something like a little more practical, like a Chrysler or something like that." Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can finally get moved these Chryslers. So they meet up with Brad Pitt. Once again, Julia Roberts and him are just like cats and dogs, those two.
Well, before Brad Pitt shows up, Gandolfini and Roberts have like their final little like heart-to-heart moment where I feel like this movie screenwriter thinks like the most insightful line of dialogue that he's ever written in his career is right here, is when Gandolfini says to Roberts, if two people love each other but they just can't get it together, when is enough enough? And she gives him this super irritating answer.
Non-answer.
Where she doesn't even like give him like...
Just kind of regurgitating a bunch of
Yeah.
like self-help bullshit that she doesn't even quite believe herself, but she's been coached into
And
believing herself.
clearly Gandolfini has been trying to get to the point where he's just saying this all like, no, if people love each other, then they work their shit out and they get together, even though that's not an attitude I ascribe to. Sometimes relationships are bad and you
Yeah.
need to end them. But anyway, yes, Brad Pitt finally shows up.
They get into a car, I forget to go to what destination, because they're still arguing, Brad Pitt just says, like, if you say one more word, I'm going to crash this car. And she says,
I meant to look that up. Wait, did anyone else look that up?
I did not look that up.
No.
But of all the things, he's like, that's it! And he starts swerving around to the other cars and everything.
And
It's
much
a deeply irresponsible
Yeah.
choice by him.
And much like the passport, it's just another contrived way to keep this going on because
Yes.
he swerves off the road and he gets a flat tire, and now they have to stop and now they have to change the tire. Now, okay, this is leading up to this movie's biggest crime, but now we need to kind of sort of like color in these lines here. We find out that Brad Pitt, because Brad Pitt's been talking to J.K. Simmons, and J.K. Simmons says they sent someone to kidnap your girlfriend, keep an eye on her to make sure that
They sent Leroy, and he's like, oh shit, I know Leroy.
I met Leroy
He's
once.
a psychopath.
He's like a stone cold killer. And then when Brad Pitt pulls up to the airport, he kind of like gives James Gandolfini like a once over, and we're all like, oh, what does that look mean? And then Brad Pitt starts to change the tire on the car. James Gandolfini pulls a gun on him, but a bunch of cars go by, and he realizes, well, I can't shoot him because there's all these witnesses.
Well, no, the cars passing by draw his attention towards Julia Roberts, who's storming off in a huff, but he remembers the bonding that they had. They remember that, she actually does have affection for him, so he can't bring himself to kill her true love.
Yeah, he should have, though,
Yeah.
because inexplicably he starts changing the tire.
There's another like huge movie flaw here too, because we have the scene early where she goes into the bathroom and then tries to escape, and he's like, I'm a professional, right? So like he's a very good hitman, and yet he didn't, like, not even once did he think maybe Brad Pitt has a gun. He didn't pat him down. He didn't check him. Like, his job is to make sure that doesn't happen.
I'm just going to go ahead and turn my back on you. Someone that literally a second ago I was ready to kill.
Yeah, like, it just makes no sense for his character.
No, it doesn't. No, this character wouldn't make that choice. Yeah, some other things that we saw happen earlier in the movie is when they're brushing their teeth in the hotel room, we see that James Gandolfini has a tattoo that says Winston, and Julia Roberts says, "Who's Winston?" And James Gandolfini just simply replies, "Someone I don't like very much." Leroy gets down on one knee and he changes the tire.
And then cuts to Julia Roberts and we hear a gunshot. And I'm just like, oh, please let it be Brad Pitt that dies.
You
Please
know
let it
it's
be.
not.
No.
You know, because he's Brad Pitt and he's the first billed actor in this movie.
And we see that he killed the heart and soul of this fucking movie in James Gandolfini. But guess what? It doesn't fucking matter, because the first thing he says is, that's not fucking Leroy. Leroy's a black guy. I've met him before.
So, and I don't.
That was the other hitman.
Yes, and I don't know if we actually personally mentioned that on this podcast, but yes, the assassin that killed Frank and has been following them is a black man himself. So
And it turns out that is his crucial character trait that we're supposed to remember. That's why that actor was cast.
Well-
it's like, he's black. He has one thing that you need to remember about him. Black.
So this is what I wanted.
That's your shorthand. That's your character shorthand for this. Yeah. It was
So yeah,
awful.
this is particularly what I wanted to point out. So there's this big, shocking reveal in like the third act of this movie that this character that we've been following the entire time,
falling in love with,
and we have been led to assume is a character named Leroy, is actually a character named Winston. If you look up the credits of this movie, how James Gandolfini is credited for this movie, he is credited as Winston. So if you happen to like look up like the cast on IMDb before hitting play on this,
it ruins the fucking movie.
that twist would be ruined.
Oh my god!
But
how irresponsible!
in addition to that, you would assume if James Gandolfini is credited as Winston, this actor who has the amazing name of Sherman Augustus. It's a very fucking badass name for this actor. You would assume then in the credits that
He's credited
that
as
character
Leroy.
will be named Leroy.
Yeah.
The name of this character, Well-Dressed Black Man.
No! No! Are you... No!
That's the character. That's the character's name.
Oh no!
The only person of color in this movie.
That's not a name. That's a description.
They named him, though. Like, his... Oh, well, we already established it was a pretty racist movie, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
I mean, and like, yeah, and like, look, like, either like keep Gandolfini's name Leroy, keep that character's name Winston. Just give him a name. Just do the bare minimum and give the character like a person name, you know?
Oh my
and like,
God.
I'm thinking of like other movies, like spoiler to an old ass movie or whatever. Batman Begins, right? The reveal is that
that's a nice little.
the reveal is that Liam Neeson has been Ra's al Ghul the entire time.
Right, yeah,
you
yeah.
look at the credits for that movie, he's credited as Ducard, and Ken Watanabe is credited as Ra's al Ghul, even though we know by the end of the movie that's not the case. But the credits don't fucking give the game away.
I will say, it's 2001, which means it's very early internet, right? Like,
Yeah.
IMDb is only just really getting
Right,
off
so
the
people
ground
might not
then.
have even noticed.
Yeah, so you're not going to see those credits until the end. But if you do stick around to
Yeah.
see the credits, you'll notice what a weird racist choice it
Yeah.
is to take Leroy's name away and call this character Well-Dressed Black Man.
Yes. He was well dressed though.
He was.
We do
Very
have to
snappy
admit
dressed.
that. And yeah, but yeah, the early 2000s thing, like you're not accounting for weird little credit freaks like me who immediately notice this type of
We
thing.
should take the W with there being a really great and powerful depiction of a gay person in this. Yeah.
Who's now dead.
Who's now dead.
Who's now dead, and we learn contradicting information about that now. Kind of muddies the nice sweet character that we learned before, but there's really no time to unpack any of it.
I'm ready for the movie to be over at this fucking point.
And here's the thing:
you know?
at this point in time, I hit pause. There's still half an hour to fucking go. 30 Gandolfini less moments of this bullshit that we have to fucking put up with. I'm not having a good time. And at this point in time, like the last 30 minutes of this movie are still following the plot thread of like, are these two crazy kids gonna get together? And it's like, I don't care. He killed fucking Winston. I loved him. He was a great guy.
It did lead to one of the dumbest and thing that gave me like the biggest fucking laugh in the movie. Brad Pitt drives Julia Roberts to the airport. I guess he still can't leave the country, but there's no reason for her to be here with them. So he watches her go towards the tarmac, towards
This
the
is
airplane.
very dumb, yes.
Yeah, watches her go towards it. He thinks he sees her get on the airplane because a truck goes by and he doesn't see her on the staircase anymore. He's like, oh, well, I guess there's my answer. Turns his back, heads back towards the airport, and then she says, like, I got a question for you. Turns around, she's right there. Now, from where he was standing and where the airplane was, there's no goddamn way he would have not seen her walk towards him.
She has all of her luggage.
She's lightning fast.
Yes. But yeah, she asked him the same thing that James Gandolfini, the liar, said. You know, like, hey, when's enough going to be enough if you can't make it work? Never. He gives her the right answer. And I guess all is forgiven.
All is forgiven.
They'll famously get along perfectly for the rest of their lives.
Except they're bickering literally in the next scene.
Yeah.
And they're back at they're literally back at the hotel, and they're just waiting for like the U.S. consulate to fucking call and give Brad Pitt his fucking passport back. But then the
brothers show up, right? Is that
the carjackers?
The Mexican brothers, the carjackers from earlier. Yes, I hesitate to call them carjackers because of the stereotypes, but they are also literally carjackers within this movie. So yeah, we can call them the carjackers.
I'm calling them carjackers because that's what they did.
I'm calling it how I see it.
This leads to one of the most inexplicable scenes in the movie for me, which is where Julia Roberts somehow hides between the mattresses so that
Hollywood icon Julia Roberts.
Like, she's thin, but she's not.
She's quite skinny. Yes,
she's not between the mattresses thin.
This is a like Princess and the Peapod situation here. So Brad Pitt is taken to the villa of the descendant of the gunsmith, the big crime boss here. And who should he meet up with but the newly released from prison, original crime boss that he T-boned or whatever back in the 5 years earlier, our special celebrity guest,
Gene Hackman! Oh my god! I saw I knew he was in it. But I had forgotten because the movie was 100 years long.
Yes,
So when they got to the end and Gene Hackman was there, like legendary actor, the best actor. I was like,
Yeah.
It still didn't make the movie any good.
I'll still say, like throughout this entire movie, I don't really look into this stuff. So I was like, okay, 5 minutes in, I know Brad Pitt's in, and I know Julia Roberts. Like, holy shit, J.K. Simmons. Oh, sick. Holy shit, James Gandolfini. And then, like, at the very end, like, they... just when you think you can't get any bigger, like, bam! Exclamation point with Gene Hackman.
Yeah, every movie has been ruined for me because of the way my broken brain works, and I just, like, I live on IMDb. So, yeah, I was also aware of the fact that Gene Hackman was in this. But, yeah, I've said this before, Jameson, I'm often quite jealous of the fact you don't know that these...
That I don't give a shit?
That these surprise... yes, because it is a great reveal, because it's like the classic thing where it pans over, and yeah, bam, he's just there. He's just sitting there in the car, in the chair. Unmistakably, Gene Hackman... This is the same year that Royal Tenenbaums comes out, so he is right on the cusp of
the resurgence.
Well, no, his retirement.
Oh, okay.
Because that's one of his last movies.
Okay.
Yes, famously, his final movie is the Ray Romano, mayor of a small town comedy, Welcome to Mooseport, which he reportedly filmed the last day of, walked off the set and just all like, I'm done! And he's stuck to it. He has not made a movie since then, and he has just gone on to write like mystery novels, paint, and also weirdly appeared on one episode of Driver's the Guy Fieri show. I can't.
Wait, is he still alive?
He's still kicking.
Wow.
What? I thought he was shit. No, Gene Hackman, he's still out there. Earlier this year, there was like a thing where TMZ like snapped a photo of him.
Oh no!
At a gas station. The big sort of hook of like their article was like Gene Hackman spotted buying coffee and cigarettes at a gas station wearing the same outfit he was photographed in wearing last week. And not only is that not news, He's retired. He's 93. We're lucky he's not wearing the same outfit every day. What are you talking about? The outfit he wore last week. He's not like a working actor anymore. He can wear whatever You leave Gene Hackman alone, TMZ.
Gene Hackman spotted with pants pulled up a little too high.
He's an old-ass man.
Yeah.
You let him...
Clashing colors and clashing patterns.
You let him smoke his cigarettes and drink his gas station coffee. God damn it, he's earned that.
Yeah.
Yes, but he is Margulies, and he tells the final version of the story of the cursed gun.
And gives away the obvious ending of this film. Like, I feel like as soon as he told that story, it was like, I know where this is going.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, yeah, Julia Roberts is going to have to fire the gun that never fires properly unless you are pure of heart for some reason.
That is the thing, yes. The assistant, the gunsmith's assistant...
Curse the gun!
Curse the gun!
So that
she can't be with me, the gun will be cursed.
Only true love's trigger finger will fire the gun.
Yeah.
So the landlord's son couldn't do it. I guess like he saw that the bride had eyes for the gunsmith's assistant, so he ordered his men to kill her, and then she took the gun, the Mexican gun, to her head and shot herself dead, so nobody ends up in a happy relationship in this movie.
And her soul inhabits the gun, just like the sword of Katana from Suicide Squad. It captures the souls of her enemies.
And Gene Hackman knows the story because his cellmate was the grandson of the gang lord here that owns the villa.
Yeah.
And I guess the grandson saved Gene Hackman's life in prison, and so he owes him a blood debt.
Yeah, he took a shiv for him.
Yeah.
And so he said, like, he changed my life within prison, so as soon as I got released, I knew I had to fulfill this promise and get the gun back to the hands that
are the rightful owners.
And this is where Gene Hackman lays down, like, this idea of, like, do you believe in fate, Brad Pitt? Because he talks about this moment at the very beginning with, like, if you hadn't rear-ended my car, I don't get sent to jail. You aren't here right now. His son doesn't die in prison. My grandson doesn't die from mysterious circumstances that we're still not sure about.
In the center of this big Venn diagram is you, Brad Pitt. I'm just like, oh, okay.
Everything led to this moment right here, and we're going to make a bigger metaphor about that, and it's going to tie into the end. It's going to be really great, and you're going to go, oh, what a good movie. So Brad Pitt's all like, all right, you know what? I left the gun with Julia Roberts. I will go back and get it.
And they're like, what? Come again? Sorry to interrupt.
And Bob Balaban has shown up at this point because he's
tied her into a trunk
because he's the real villain. Yes, and so Brad Pitt and the carjackers, who are now not carjackers, they're nice normal men. Who are on his side now, show up, and they have a standoff. Not a Mexican standoff, because they are in Mexico, so it's just a standoff. Just a regular standoff. Yeah, and Julia Roberts...
She has the gun on her
She has the gun, and Bob Balaban doesn't search her, because he's a bad criminal.
None of these guys search anyone.
No one searches anyone. They
Who
really
has the
should.
time for it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there isn't ample time in this film.
In this 2-hour, 3-minute movie.
So, like, when they left, and, you know, she had the gun... Like, I really was just like, oh, come on, because I knew that they were going to have to go back. And in my mind, like, it was like I had to go back. Like,
There's so much going back in this movie. There's so much. It's like a fucking Metroidvania fucking game.
It's just backtracking
going
everywhere.
back and forth to the... I was just in this area.
You need to have a walkthrough to get through this fucking movie. Anyways, Julia Roberts shoots Bob Balaban, and
the bullet wound
goes through 2 layers of turtleneck.
It's so
we're like, oh, once again, like,
and doesn't leave a hole,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means it's cashmere.
yeah.
And then,
the hole is in his neck, and there is steam coming out of his mouth, but we don't realize there's a hole in his neck until he moves his turtleneck.
Yeah. Because
very
it's
good turtleneck.
Yeah,
Because
it's an excellent turtleneck, but
It's cashmere, it has to be.
didn't stop a bullet though, unfortunately.
yeah, and all the Mexicans in that scene are like, the gun of legend finally fired. It's a miracle. The curse has been lifted.
Well, it is a gun, guys. It's supposed to do that.
And this previously unmentioned sort of small piece of the gun falls. This sort of ring-shaped piece of the gun falls off.
That is?
I guess
thought maybe a wedding ring was lodged in it or
I
something.
guess it must be part of the gun. It must be like part of like the firing thing. I don't know, but like whatever. It falls off the gun. He gives the gun back to the Mexicans. He says, "Can I keep this piece of the gun?" It's all like, "Well, we spent all this time trying to get like all the gun, but you know what? Sure, fine, take it with with my love and my
Peace be with you.
my self-respect or whatever." Yeah, exactly. I was like, aren't we under the impression that like a woman's soul is inside this gun? Sure, take
every part of this. Like, do we get
like 5% of it? Sure, why not? That's
the
another.
gun chose Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
And it asks to marry her, so I think that it's only fitting that.
And Brad Pitt puts the ring on Julia's finger, and they're sitting down, and it's the image from the poster, and it's like one of the last things that happens in the movie, and it's like, oh, we finally got there.
Yep.
Fuck.
Brad Pitt's canine companion leaves with the Mexican guys back to the villa where they put the gun in a nice little.
I guess that
case.
dog always belonged to the crime lord. I don't know, or he just decided to adopt him at the last minute. I don't know.
It is the reincarnation of the gunsmith.
It's the soul of the gunsmith's assistant.
Yep, Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts drive off into the sunset. We see one last look of a stoplight where it just holds on green. It's like a never-ending green light. And the last thing I wrote down is, where the fuck is J.K. Simmons?
Where the fuck is J.K. Simmons?
And then the movie ends.
He moves to New York and he gets a job.
I guess these pictures of Spider-Man.
These pictures of Spider-Man. And you know, you mentioned that they drive off into the sunset. Where are they going? Brad Pitt still has no passport. He legally cannot leave the country. They can't go anywhere.
They just stay in Mexico.
They just stay in Mexico forever, presumably. Yeah, they're still there today. What? What?
What if the movie took a direction like, well, now he's got to cross the border illegally?
He could do it.
He could do it.
Figure. If anyone could, Brad Pitt could. Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And they drive off into the sunset. I give them a year.
Yeah,
I give him to that car needs to get gas.
Because that's the thing too, is like the credits start rolling and they're immediately arguing again, because that's what we love. That's what we love about these two, is their constant.
How relatable they are.
Yeah. That's the Mexican. Did we not? Is there anything else we didn't talk about that we wanted to talk about? I feel like we covered everything.
Yeah, I think we got most of it. I will say, like, you'd think that they would have realized that their movie was not going to work when, like, that big scene, you know, where Brad Pitt shoots James Gandolfini, like, when that happened.
An unforgivable act. In my opinion.
and like, and when, you know, there's still that moment of like, oh, like, who got shot? I have to imagine everyone watching this movie is like, please be Brad Pitt.
That's what I was doing.
Right? But like, you know, you're watching the movie like in editing, like everybody's like watching it, like, okay, they have to have those feelings. Do they not have those feelings? I feel like they had to. So
they probably just did like a pickup shoot where it's like, okay, we need to just info dump all the people that like, no, it's okay that James Gandolfini died because he's a liar and he's actually like a different person, and all the bonding that he's doing with Julia Roberts doesn't matter.
Even though it so totally does, because it's like that's the only human element of this fucking movie. And it's like, we know he's not a lie. He was lying about his identity, but we know that he wasn't lying about all of the things that he was talking to her about.
And remorse.
Yeah, that came from the heart, because you got an amazing actor to do it.
Maybe since it's 2001, they're just counting on the audience being more homophobic.
Sure, exactly. It's all like, well, exactly. It's the classic bury your gays trope, where it's all like, yeah, it's like we can't let them live. We will extend the courtesy of letting him be like an actual human being with like depth and character, but he can't live. Yeah. He has to die is the thing, because ew, gross.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, there we go. The Mexican, does it have a certain something, or is it just a whole load of nada?
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Just
awful.
Nothing. Oh no, it does have James Gandolfini. That's
it does. That's the certain something that it has. Yeah.
But that's everything that we're just talking about. Like the thing that it has, it robs from us.
Yeah.
You know, I felt as crestfallen as Julia Roberts did when she found out that this wasn't the man who she thought he was. It felt like a complete waste of my time. Everything that had James Gandolfini and her sharing a screen time together, I thought was very heartwarming, very beautiful, very poignant. And then that's just completely off the table. And all the stuff with Brad Pitt and just like goofing off in Mexico, I thought was really annoying and not terribly engaging. Yeah, didn't like this one bit.
Yeah, it's convoluted.
Fuck you, Harrison.
You're welcome.
You love it. Yeah, it's convoluted. It's contrived. It's just such a weird movie. Why did they make it? Why did anyone think it was a good idea? I don't know. They had to make a movie. They just had to make some movie. They had to make a movie. but it didn't really affect anyone in any way. Like I said, Brad Pitt and Julia had Ocean's 11 right around the corner, and their careers continued on.
The Sopranos was just around the corner for James Gandolfini.
Oh, no, he was 2 seasons in.
Two seasons in.
Yeah, he was already doing it.
Geez.
Yeah.
Apparently, Julia Roberts read this script and insisted this film get made. And I think it's possible that she did what a lot of actors do, which is that they only read their scenes.
Oh, I'm going to be sharing a lot of screen time with James Gandolfini. Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Yes. And look, if one good thing came out of this movie, it's the fact that this was the movie where Julia Roberts met her current husband, Daniel Moder, and they're still together. Even though when she met him, she was dating Benjamin Bratt, and he was married with children. But it all worked out, and true love won in the end. And isn't that the most important thing, everyone? All right, well, that was the Mexican Harrison.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, man.
Patting myself on the back, but this show is never better than when you're here.
You guys are too kind.
Talking this bullshit with us. It's fantastic. Yeah. Do you want to plug anything?
I got a lot of stuff going on right now. You can read my writing at the Tyee and the Narwhal. I've got 2 picture books coming out, children's books. One is called I Just Have to Race All These Ghosts, and the other one is called
title.
Thank you. And the other one is called Bedtime for Boats. And then I have a memoir on the way called Bittersweet, a memoir of recovery. I have no idea when these things are out. They all take a really long time, but look for them. And in the meantime, buy my other book, because I still haven't out-earned my advance. So pick up Invisible Boy, a memoir of self-discovery at any bookstore. It's at all the bookstores. It's still there, because I haven't out-earned my advance.
Amazing. Yes, please do that. Absolutely. And that was The Mexican, directed by Gore Verbinski. If you like this episode, please check out our back catalog of other episodes where some of them have been recorded under the title of The Fuck Is This? But you can listen to us. We are currently streaming on Spotify and YouTube. You can follow us on all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, X, what have you. We'd like to thank Eddie Lamb for his fantastic theme music.
Before we move on from that, just going to give a quick plug out that I'm going to be a guest on friend of the show, Eddie Lamb's podcast.
Amazing!
On an upcoming episode, so the Eddie Lamb Show. Check that episode whenever that drops.
Yeah, and to mention the Instagram, when that happens, when that episode drops, if you're listening to this, check the Instagram, and maybe there'll be a link to that. Maybe that will have happened. Maybe you're listening in the future. Who knows? Who's to say? But I'm Kaz. You can follow me on Letterboxd, where I am the host of Nothing Movies and the only host of Nothing Movies, and that's a quantifiable fact.
It's a Quantumania.
It's absolutely. It's Ant-Man and the Wasp 3.
I do animated films. Harrison co-wrote an episode with me.
Yeah.
I have them all on my YouTube channel, Uptown Slim Jim. I do not plug the podcasts on there, so you're doing one better than I am, at least.
Well, I mean, you also have a YouTube channel where you write and animate your own original things, and I have a Letterboxd account where I do nothing and I contribute 0 to society, but that's fine. But anyway, for Nothing Movies, I'm Kaz.
For Nothing Movies, I'm Jameson, and in the immortal words of Brad Pitt, probably my favorite line from Fight Club, even the Mona Lisa's falling apart.
And I'm Harrison.